The elevator doors slid open on the 42nd floor, and Nathan Brooks felt his heart stop. Standing there in a charcoal power suit was the only woman he'd ever loved, the same woman who thought he'd betrayed her 8 years ago. Scarlett Bennett's green eyes went wide, then cold as ice. Her perfectly manicured hand froze halfway to the button panel. Behind him, his phone buzzed again. Emma's school, third call in 10 minutes. His daughter needed him, but he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except stare at the ghost of his past, blocking the only way to his future. Before we dive into this story, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's get into it. The fluorescent lights in the basement mechanical room flickered the way they always did around 3 in the afternoon, casting shadows across Nathan's workbench, like some kind of broken metronome. He'd learned to tune it out years ago, same way he'd learned to tune out most things that didn't involve keeping the building running or keeping Emma fed. His phone lit up on the metal surface beside his toolbox. The school's number, again. Nathan's stomach dropped before he even swiped to answer. "Mr. Brooks?" The nurse's voice had that particular strain that meant something was wrong. Really wrong. "Emma's fever has spiked to 103. She's asking for you. We need you to come get her immediately." "I'm on my way." He was already moving, grabbing his keys, his jacket. 10 minutes, tell her I'm coming." The phone went dead in his hand, and Nathan was halfway to the service elevator before he remembered, before the sick feeling in his gut got worse. The damn thing had been broken since yesterday morning. Red tagged, out of order. He'd reported it himself. No, no, no. He slammed his palm against the elevator door anyway, like that would make a difference, like the universe owed him something. It didn't. The executive elevators were on the other side of the building, past the marble lobby, where people in $1,000 shoes clicked their way to meetings he'd never be invited to. Nathan had worked in this building for 4 years, and he'd never once set foot in one of those elevators. They were for people who mattered, people who hadn't thrown their entire lives away. But Emma needed him. He ran. The marble felt wrong under his work boots, too smooth, too expensive. A woman in reception glanced up as he passed, her expression shifting from neutral to vaguely disapproving when she registered the maintenance uniform. Nathan didn't slow down. Didn't care. Let them stare. The executive elevator lobby was empty, thank whatever was listening. Brass fixtures gleamed under lighting that actually worked, unlike the basement. The whole space smelled like money and furniture polish. Nathan jabbed the call button harder than necessary, watching the floor numbers descend with agonizing slowness. 38. 37. 36. His phone buzzed, text from the school nurse. "She's crying for you." Nathan's jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. Emma didn't cry easily. She'd inherited his stubborn streak, the one that kept you standing when everything else said to fall down. If she was crying, if she was scared... The elevator chimed. Ground floor, doors slid open. Empty. Nathan stepped inside, hitting the button for the ground floor exit before anyone could join him, before security could ask what the hell he was doing in the executive elevator wearing steel-toed boots and grease-stained work pants. The doors started to close. Then a hand shot through the gap. Manicured, red nails, a thin platinum watch that probably cost more than Nathan's monthly rent. The doors jerked back open, and Nathan's entire world came to a complete and total stop. She was older, 8 years older. The kind of older that made sense on paper but felt impossible in reality. Her dark hair was shorter now, cut in some sleek style that probably had a name he wouldn't know. She wore a charcoal suit that fit like it had been sewn directly onto her body, and heels that brought her almost to his eye level. But her eyes were exactly the same shade of green he'd memorized a lifetime ago. The same eyes that had looked at him with love once, before everything went to hell. Scarlett Bennett stepped into the elevator. She hadn't seen him yet. She was looking at her phone, scrolling through something, her thumb moving in quick, efficient swipes. Professional, focused, every inch the CEO she'd become. Nathan's throat closed up. His brain screamed at him to move, to say something, to do literally anything except stand there like an idiot. But he couldn't. She tapped something on her screen, then finally glanced up. The color drained from her face so fast Nathan thought she might pass out. Her phone slipped from her hand. hit the elevator floor with a crack that sounded impossibly loud in the small space. Neither of them moved to pick it up. "Nathan?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He managed a nod. Couldn't quite manage words yet. Scarlett's expression cycled through shock, confusion, and then something that looked uncomfortably close to disgust as her eyes traveled down his uniform, taking in the name patch, the worn fabric, the evidence of exactly how far he'd fallen. "What?" She stopped, started again. "What are you doing here?" "I work here." The words came out rougher than he intended. "Maintenance." Something flickered across her face. He couldn't quite read it. "You work here. In my building." "Your building?" The laugh that escaped him held no humor at all. "Right, of course it is. I've been CEO for 3 years, Nathan. 3 years. You've been—" She gestured vaguely at his uniform. "You've been here the whole time?" 4 years, actually. The elevator hung suspended between floors, going nowhere. Neither of them had pressed a button. They just stood there, 2 feet and 8 years apart, while the air conditioning hummed and the building settled around them with small creaks and groans. Scarlett bent down, retrieved her phone. The screen was cracked, a spiderweb of damage radiating from one corner. She stared at it like she didn't quite recognize what it was. "I need to go." Nathan's hand reached for the door-open button. "My daughter's sick. The school called." "Daughter?" Scarlett's eyes snapped back to his face. "You have a daughter." "Yeah." He didn't elaborate, didn't owe her an explanation, didn't owe her anything. "And a wife, I suppose?" "No." That single word seemed to hit her harder than it should have. Her perfectly composed expression cracked just slightly. "Nathan, what happened to you?" "Life." He pushed the ground floor button, watched it light up. "Life happened." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." The elevator lurched into motion. Scarlett grabbed the rail to steady herself, and Nathan saw her hand shake. Actually shake. The Ice Queen CEO shaking. "You disappeared," she said quietly. 8 years ago. You just vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. The police investigated. Your parents hired a private detective. Everyone thought—" Her voice caught. "We thought something terrible had happened to you." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "Something terrible did happen to me, Scarlett. Just not the kind you're thinking." "Then what? Tell me what happened. You owe me that much." "I owe you?" The anger he'd buried for years threatened to surface. "I don't owe you anything. Not anymore." The elevator chimed. Ground floor. Nathan moved toward the doors before they fully opened, desperate to get out, to get to Emma, to get away from this woman and everything she represented. "Wait!" Scarlett's hand shot out, not quite touching him, but close enough that he felt the heat of it. "Nathan, please. I need to understand." "You want to understand?" He turned back, and whatever she saw in his face made her take a step back. "Your father destroyed my life. He blacklisted me from every architecture firm in this city. He threatened me with lawsuits I couldn't afford to fight. He made sure I'd never work in my field again. That's what you need to understand." The color drained from Scarlett's face a second time. "My father would never—" "Your father did." Nathan stepped out of the elevator. "Ask him yourself, if he's even capable of telling the truth." The door started to close. Scarlett stood frozen, her hand still raised, her face a mask of shock and something that might have been the beginning of belief. Nathan was already running toward the exit, his phone pressed to his ear, when he heard the elevator doors finally shut. The school was a 15-minute subway ride he made in 12, running up from the underground station with his lungs burning and his heart trying to punch through his ribs. Emma's school occupied the ground floor of an old building in the South Bronx, not fancy, not expensive, but good. They had teachers who knew sign language, who understood what Emma needed. That mattered more than fancy buildings. The nurse met him at the front desk, relief visible on her face. "She's in my office. The fever's still high, but she's been asking for you every 2 minutes." "Thank you. I'm sorry it took so long." "Don't apologize. You got here fast." She led him down the hallway, past construction paper artwork and alphabet posters. "She's a tough kid, your daughter, but she was scared." The nurse's office was small, just a cot and a desk and some medical supplies in a locked cabinet. Emma lay curled up on the cot, still in her school uniform, navy blue jumper and white shirt, with a wet cloth on her forehead. Her eyes were closed, dark lashes against flushed cheeks. Nathan's entire body relaxed and tensed up all at once. She was okay. She was here. Emma's eyes opened, big and brown, and exactly like her mother's, the only thing Nathan had left of Lily. "Daddy?" she signed, her small hands moving quickly. "You came." "Always, baby." He knelt beside the cot, pressing his palm to her forehead. "Too hot. Way too hot. I'll always come. How do you feel?" "My head hurts, and I'm cold." She was burning up. Nathan looked at the nurse, who was already preparing something in a small cup. "Children's Tylenol," the nurse explained. "I needed your permission before I gave it to her." "Yes, thank you." Between them, they got Emma to swallow the medicine. She made a face, 6 years old, and already had opinions about everything, but she didn't fight it. "Can we go home?" Emma signed. "I want my bed." "Yeah, sweetheart, we're going home." Getting Emma into her coat took longer than it should have. Her arms felt like noodles, and she kept leaning against him, her small body radiating heat like a furnace. Nathan scooped her up, 38 pounds of fever and determination, and headed for the door. "Mr. Brooks?" The nurse stopped him. "If the fever doesn't break by tonight, or if it goes any higher, you need to take her to the ER. Don't wait." "I won't." The subway ride home was a special kind of torture. Emma dozed against his chest, whimpering occasionally when the train jerked or made loud noises. Other passengers glanced over, some with sympathy, some with the kind of studied indifference New Yorkers perfected. Nathan ignored all of them, focused on keeping Emma steady and getting her home. Their apartment was on the 4th floor of a building that had been old when Nathan was born. No elevator. Of course no elevator. He carried Emma up the stairs, her weight feeling like nothing and everything simultaneously. His daughter. His responsibility. His whole world in 38 pounds. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom for Emma, the couch that folded out for Nathan, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, and a bathroom where the shower leaked no matter how many times he fixed it. But it was theirs. He'd made it theirs. Hand-built furniture when he couldn't afford to buy it. Emma's drawings taped to every wall. Books from the library stacked in careful piles. Nathan laid Emma down in her bed, the one with the purple comforter she'd picked out at Target, surrounded by stuffed animals, and the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. She stirred, signing something he couldn't quite catch. "Sleep, baby. I'm right here." He was. He pulled the chair from her small desk over beside the bed and sat down, watching her breathe, counting the breaths, checking her forehead every 5 minutes like he could will the fever down through sheer force of worry. This was his life now. Had been for 6 years. Work, Emma. Home. Emma. Work. Home. An endless cycle of responsibility that he'd chosen, that he'd never regret, but that left no room for anything else. No room for the past. No room for what he'd lost. No room for green eyes and platinum watches and elevators that went to floors he'd never reach. Nathan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but Emma was asleep, and he could step into the hallway if he needed to. "Hello? Nathan Brooks?" A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. "This is Jennifer Castellano, head of human resources for Bennett Global Industries." His stomach dropped. "Okay. I'm calling to inform you that effective immediately, you've been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation." "Investigation? For what?" "Unauthorized use of executive facilities. There was an incident this afternoon involving the executive elevator. My daughter was sick." Nathan's voice came out flat, dangerous. "The service elevator was broken. I needed to get to her school." "Be that as it may, Mr. Brooks, there are protocols. You violated those protocols. The investigation will determine whether further disciplinary action is warranted, up to and including termination." "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious. You'll receive an email with the formal details. Don't return to the building until you're cleared. If you need to retrieve personal items from your work area, security will supervise." The line went dead. Nathan stared at his phone, at the blank screen, at the reflection of his own face looking tired and angry and exactly as powerless as he felt. She'd done this. Scarlet. Had to be. He shows up in her elevator, ruins her perfect day with reminders of who he used to be, and she makes a call, gets him suspended, maybe fired. Because she could. Because she was the CEO and he was nobody. Except the look on her face in that elevator hadn't been cold. It had been shocked, confused, almost hurt. Nathan shook his head. Didn't matter. None of it mattered. What mattered was Emma, asleep in her bed with a fever that wasn't breaking. What mattered was the fact that he might have just lost his job, which meant no health insurance, which meant if Emma needed a doctor, he couldn't think about that. Not now. Nathan checked Emma's forehead again. Still too hot. He wet the cloth in cool water, wrung it out, laid it gently across her skin. She stirred but didn't wake. "It's okay, baby girl," he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him. "We're going to be okay." He'd said that before, 8 years ago, standing in a hospital room holding a newborn baby while her mother's heart monitor flatlined. He'd said it then, and he'd meant it, and he'd made it true through sheer stubborn refusal to let anything else happen. He'd make it true now, too. He had to. That. Emma's fever broke around 2 in the morning. Nathan woke up in the chair beside her bed, had apparently fallen asleep at some point, to find her watching him in the dim glow of the night light. "You slept in the chair," she signed. "Your back is going to hurt." Nathan smiled despite everything. "My back always hurts. How do you feel?" "Better. Hungry." "Hungry is good. Hungry means you're getting better." He made her toast with butter and honey, her favorite, and sat with her at the small kitchen table while she ate. Outside the window, the Bronx was dark except for streetlights and the occasional passing car. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. "No school tomorrow?" Emma signed hopefully. "Definitely no school tomorrow, but only because you were sick. Not because you're trying to get out of school." She grinned at him, a gap-toothed smile that made his chest hurt in the best way. "Maybe a little bit to get out of school. Brat, you love me." "Unfortunately, yes." Emma finished her toast, then yawned so wide Nathan could see her molars. Back to bed, another forehead check. Normal temperature now, finally, and she was asleep again within minutes. Nathan stood in the doorway watching her for a long time. 6 years old, smart as hell, tougher than she should have to be, and completely deaf in a world that wasn't built for her. But she was happy. Mostly happy. He'd made sure of that. Everything he'd done, everything he'd sacrificed, it was for this, for her, for the chance to give her a good life even if his own had gone to hell. His phone sat on the kitchen counter where he'd left it, screen dark. No more calls from HR. No explanations. Just the knowledge that tomorrow, today, technically, since it was past midnight, he wasn't supposed to go to work. Nathan picked up the phone, opened his email. Sure enough, there it was. Formal notification of administrative leave. Pending investigation. Please refrain from contacting other employees or discussing the matter. He read it twice, then set the phone down and walked to the window. Manhattan glittered in the distance, all lit up buildings and money and power. Somewhere in one of those towers, Scarlett Bennett was probably asleep in a penthouse apartment, dreaming CEO dreams that didn't include maintenance men and broken elevators. Or maybe she wasn't sleeping. Maybe she was awake too, staring at her cracked phone screen, wondering what the hell had happened to the man she used to know. Nathan pressed his forehead against the cool glass. He'd loved her once. Loved her so much it had felt like dying when it ended. They'd had plans. Actual plans. Marriage, kids, a future together designing buildings that mattered. They were going to change the world, or at least their little corner of it. And then her father had called him into that office. Nathan could still see it clearly. The massive desk, the leather chairs, the view of Central Park that probably cost more per square foot than most people's homes. Richard Bennett had been smiling, but it was the kind of smile sharks probably had right before they bit. Nathan, sit down. We need to talk about your future with this company. He should have known then, should have seen it coming. But he'd been 24 and stupid and in love, and he'd thought good things happened to people who worked hard and did the right thing. I've been reviewing the Riverside Luxury Project, Nathan had said, pulling out his folder of documentation. Sir, there's a problem. The materials being used don't meet code. I've run the numbers 3 times and the structural integrity is compromised. We need to halt construction immediately and we need to do nothing of the sort. Richard's smile never wavered. Those materials are perfectly adequate. They're not. I have the engineering reports right here. The concrete mixture is substandard, the rebar specifications are below minimum requirements, and the waterproofing is fine. It's all fine, Nathan. It's not fine. People are going to live in these buildings, families, children. If there's an earthquake or even just normal structural stress over time, there won't be. You can't know that. I know that this project is worth $800 million. I know that we've already sold 80% of the units. And I know that some idealistic kid fresh out of architecture school is not going to derail everything because he's concerned about hypotheticals. Nathan had felt the floor drop out from under him. This isn't hypothetical. This is real. This is dangerous. What's dangerous, Richard had said, his voice dropping to something cold and precise, is you making a fuss about nothing. What's dangerous is you damaging this company's reputation with baseless accusations. What's dangerous is you forgetting where your loyalty should lie. My loyalty is to doing the right thing. Your loyalty is to this company, to my daughter, who you're apparently planning to marry, to your career, which I can make or break with a single phone call. Richard stood up, walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. Here's what's going to happen, Nathan. You're going to destroy those reports. You're going to finish the Riverside project exactly as planned. And you're going to keep your mouth shut about materials and codes and all your Boy Scout concerns. And if I don't, then you'll never work as an architect again. Not in this city. Not anywhere. I'll make sure of it. Richard turned around, still smiling that shark smile. I'll also make sure Scarlett knows exactly what kind of man you really are. I'll tell her you tried to sabotage the company for a competitor, that you stole proprietary information, that you've been lying to her all along. She won't believe you. Won't she? I'm her father, Nathan. You're just some boy she's been dating for 2 years. Who do you think she'll trust? Nathan had walked out of that office knowing his life was over. Either he stayed silent and watched innocent people move into dangerous buildings, or he spoke up and lost everything. His career, the woman he loved, his entire future. He tried to find a third option. Spent 3 weeks trying to figure out a way to expose the truth without destroying himself. But Richard Bennett had connections everywhere. Lawyers who made it clear that Nathan had signed ND as that would bury him in litigation. City inspectors who mysteriously couldn't find time to review his concerns. Other architecture firms that suddenly weren't hiring. And then Lily had called with news that changed everything. She was pregnant. Nathan hadn't been in love with Lily. They'd been casual, occasional, the kind of relationship that didn't mean forever. But she was pregnant, and the baby was his, and suddenly his choices became very simple. He could fight Richard Bennett and lose everything, or he could disappear and at least have enough money to support his child. So he disappeared, left New York, left Scarlett, left architecture. Spent 4 years doing construction work in Pennsylvania, sending money to Lily, visiting whenever he could. And when Emma was born, when he'd held his daughter for the first time and felt his entire world reorganize around her, he'd known he'd made the right choice. Even when Lily died 6 months later. Even when he'd come back to New York with a baby and no prospects and nothing left of the person he used to be. Even when he'd taken the only job he could get, maintenance work in the building where he'd once designed projects worth millions. He'd made the right choice. He had to believe that. Nathan pulled away from the window, checked on Emma one more time, still sleeping peacefully, and finally lay down on the couch that served as his bed. The springs creaked under his weight. Outside, the city hummed with life that had nothing to do with him. Tomorrow, he'd figure out what to do about the suspension. Tomorrow, he'd deal with whatever Scarlett had set in motion. Tonight, Emma's fever had broken, and that was enough. Morning came too early and too bright, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and hitting Nathan square in the face. He groaned, rolled over, remembered he was on a couch and not a bed, and nearly fell onto the floor. Emma was already awake. He could hear her in her room, couldn't hear her moving around because she was quiet as a ghost, but he'd developed a sixth sense for knowing when she was up. Parent superpower. He found her sitting cross-legged on her bed, still in her pajamas, reading one of her picture books. She looked up when he appeared in the doorway, a huge smile on her face. "I feel better," she signed enthusiastically. Can I have pancakes? You can have whatever you want, baby girl, but you're still staying home from school. She pouted, but not very convincingly. Emma liked school, but she also liked staying home with him, and she was smart enough to milk the sick day privileges while they lasted. Nathan made pancakes from the box mix in the cabinet, shaped them into hearts because that's what you did when your kid had been sick. Emma drowned hers in syrup and ate them with her fingers, getting sticky everywhere, and Nathan didn't have the heart to tell her to use a fork. His phone buzzed. He almost ignored it, but it might be the school or HR with more terrible news, or unknown number again. Hello? Nathan Brooks? A man's voice this time, older, familiar in a way that made Nathan's spine go rigid. Who is this? Richard Bennett. Nathan's hand tightened around the phone so hard he was surprised it didn't crack. Emma was watching him, sensing the change in his mood the way kids always could. He forced his face into something neutral, gave her a reassuring smile, then walked into his bedroom and closed the door. How did you get this number? I own half the city, Nathan. Getting a phone number isn't exactly a challenge. Richard's voice was smooth, unbothered. I understand you had an encounter with my daughter yesterday. Your daughter had me suspended. Actually, that was HR overreacting. I've already told them to disregard the incident. You'll be reinstated immediately, full back pay for any time missed. Nathan didn't say anything. Waited. I'm calling to remind you of our agreement, Richard continued. The one we made 8 years ago. You stay quiet about Riverside, and I stay quiet about what really happened. That arrangement still stands. I haven't said anything. Good. Keep it that way, especially now that you've reconnected with Scarlett. We didn't reconnect. We were in an elevator together. That's it. Let's keep it that way. Scarlett doesn't need to know about our conversation 8 years ago. She doesn't need to know about the Riverside project. She doesn't need to know anything that would upset her or damage the company. Are we clear? Crystal. Excellent. You'll find the suspension has been lifted. You can return to work tomorrow if you'd like. Take today for your daughter. I understand she was ill. The line went dead. Nathan stood in his bedroom, staring at nothing, his heart pounding. Richard knew about Emma. Of course he knew. He probably knew everything, where Nathan lived, where Emma went to school, every detail of their small, struggling life. And he was reminding Nathan, in his pleasant businessman voice, that he could take it all away whenever he wanted. The bedroom door opened. Emma stood there in her syrup-covered pajamas, concern written all over her face. Are you okay? She signed. You look sad. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just work stuff. I don't like work stuff. Work stuff makes you sad. Nathan knelt down, pulled her into a hug. She smelled like maple syrup and kid shampoo and everything good in his life. Work stuff is boring, he said out loud, knowing she could read his lips. Let's talk about fun stuff instead. What do you want to do today? Can we go to the park? After lunch. First, we need to clean up the pancake disaster you created. She giggled, actual sound, the rare kind of laugh she only made when she forgot to be self-conscious about it, and ran back to the kitchen. Nathan followed more slowly, his mind already racing ahead. Richard had lifted the suspension, had probably never intended it to be permanent, just a warning shot, a reminder of who held the power. But Scarlett's face in that elevator, that hadn't looked like someone who was in on her father's games, that had looked like genuine shock, which meant either she didn't know what her father had done 8 years ago, or she was a better actor than Nathan gave her credit for. The rest of the day passed in the familiar rhythm of single parenthood. Park in the afternoon, Emma making friends with other kids on the playground, her hands flying as she signed with the 2 other deaf children who went to her school. Dinner that was more negotiation than meal. Yes, she had to eat vegetables. No, ketchup did not count as a vegetable. Bath time, story time, the elaborate bedtime routine that Emma insisted on even when she wasn't feeling good. By the time she was asleep, Nathan was exhausted in the bone-deep way that only parenting could create. He should sleep, should rest, should stop thinking about green eyes and cracked phone screens and the way Scarlett's voice had broken when she asked what happened to him. Instead, he pulled out his laptop, the old one that took 5 minutes to boot up, and did something he hadn't done in years. He searched for Scarlett Bennett. The internet had plenty to say about her. CEO at 27, youngest person ever to run Bennett Global Industries, worth an estimated $400 million. sat on the boards of 3 major charities, named one of Fortune's 40 under 40 2 years running. There were pictures too. Scarlett at galas in gowns that probably cost more than Nathan's car. Scarlett cutting ribbons at building openings. Scarlett giving speeches at conferences, looking powerful and confident and nothing like the girl he'd known. One article from 6 months ago caught his attention. Bennett Global Under Fire, CEO, faces questions about father's legacy. Nathan clicked it. The article was vague, full of corporate speak and carefully worded accusations. Something about questionable building practices during Richard Bennett's tenure as CEO. Something about materials that didn't quite meet specifications. Investigations that went nowhere because of convenient legal settlements. Riverside. It had to be. Someone had finally asked questions about Riverside, and Scarlett, who'd taken over the company 3 years ago, had been the one to answer them. Or not answer them. The article made it clear she'd stonewalled the reporters, cited attorney-client privilege, and generally shut down every line of inquiry. Protecting her father's reputation. Or protecting the company. Or maybe not knowing what the hell she was protecting because Richard had never told her the truth. Nathan closed the laptop before he could spiral any further down that rabbit hole. Tomorrow he'd go back to work. Back to fixing air conditioning units and replacing light fixtures and pretending he'd never been anything other than a maintenance man. Back to keeping his head down and his mouth shut and his daughter safe. The way he'd been doing for 8 years. The way he'd keep doing for as long as it took. Even if it meant watching Scarlett Bennett ride those executive elevators past him every single day, never knowing that he'd sacrificed everything to protect the very people her father had been willing to hurt, even if it killed him. The basement mechanical room felt different when Nathan returned to work the next morning. Same fluorescent lights, same concrete walls, same smell of machine oil and cleaning chemicals. But different somehow, like coming back to a place that didn't quite fit anymore. Jenkins was already there, sorting through electrical supplies with the methodical precision of someone who'd been doing the same job for 30 years. "Heard you got suspended," Jenkins said without looking up. "That was fast." "Heard I got unsuspended too." "Even faster." Jenkins finally glanced over, his weathered face unreadable. "You piss off someone important?" "Something like that." "Well, try not to do it again. I don't want to train another guy. Last one couldn't tell a pipe wrench from a crescent wrench." It was as close to sympathy as Jenkins ever got. Nathan appreciated it anyway. The work orders were piling up. They always were. Broken toilet on the 16th floor. Flickering lights in the east stairwell. Strange noise coming from the HVAC system on 32. Normal building problems that Nathan could fix without thinking, which was exactly what he needed. Something mindless. Something that didn't involve green eyes or phone calls from men who held his entire life in their hands. He was elbow deep in the toilet repair, fighting with a corroded shut-off valve, when his radio crackled to life. "Brooks, you there?" It was Denise from security. Nathan wiped his hands on his work pants, grabbed the radio. "Yeah, I'm here. Got a situation on 42, executive floor. CEO's requesting maintenance." His stomach dropped. "For what?" "Didn't say. Just said to send someone up." "You're the only one available." Of course he was. Jenkins was out on a job, and the other guys didn't start until afternoon shift. Just Nathan's luck. "Copy that. I'll head up." He took the service elevator this time, back in working order after yesterday's repairs, and tried not to think about what Scarlett could possibly want. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she had a leaky faucet or a stuck window. Maybe it had nothing to do with yesterday at all. The executive floor was quiet when he stepped off the elevator. Thick carpeting absorbed sound, and the lighting was soft and expensive looking. Nathan had only been up here once before, years ago, when they'd first hired him, and HR was still located on this floor. He found the CEO's office at the end of the hall. The door was open. Scarlett stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, her back to the door, silhouetted against a view of Manhattan that probably cost more per month than Nathan made in a year. She wore a navy suit today, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look severe and professional. Nathan knocked on the doorframe. "You called for maintenance?" She turned around and he saw the dark circles under her eyes, saw the tension in her shoulders, saw the cracked phone still sitting on her desk, unfixed. "Come in. Close the door." He did, though every instinct told him this was a bad idea. "There's nothing wrong with your office," Scarlett said. "I lied to security." "Okay. I needed to talk to you without..." She gestured vaguely, without making it official. Nathan stayed by the door, arms crossed. So talk. I went to see my father yesterday, after we spoke. She picked up a folder from her desk, held it like it weighed 100 pounds. I asked him about what you said, about blacklisting you, about threatening you. And? He admitted it. Her voice was flat, controlled. He admitted all of it. Nathan didn't say anything, didn't trust himself to speak. He told me you found irregularities in the Riverside Luxury Project, that you were going to report them, that he stopped you. Scarlett's hands tightened on the folder. He said he did what was necessary to protect the company. That's one way to put it. Nathan, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of this. You thought I just disappeared? Just walked away from you, from my career, from everything, for no reason? I thought... She stopped, started again. My father told me you'd been approached by a competitor, that you were trying to steal proprietary information, that you'd been using me to get access to company files. Nathan laughed, bitter and sharp. And you believed him. He's my father. He's a liar. Scarlett flinched like he'd slapped her. I know that now. I've spent the last 18 hours going through old company records, looking at the Riverside project, the materials used, the inspection reports, the settlements we paid out when structural issues started appearing. Settlements? Nathan pushed off from the door. What settlements? 3 years ago, one of the Riverside buildings developed foundation cracks. We paid the residents to relocate and keep quiet. Last year, another building had water damage from faulty waterproofing. We settled that too. She opened the folder, and Nathan saw page after page of legal documents. You were right, about all of it. Those buildings were dangerous. The anger that had been simmering in Nathan's chest for 8 years threatened to explode. People lived there, families, kids. I know. You paid them off? That's your solution? Write some checks and hope nobody dies? What would you have me do? Scarlett's voice rose to match his. The buildings are already built. The damage is already done. I'm trying to fix what my father broke, but I can't turn back time. You could tell the truth. The truth would destroy this company. Thousands of people would lose their jobs. Our stock would collapse. And it wouldn't change anything for the people who already lived in those buildings and moved out. Nathan stared at her. You sound just like him. That hit home. He saw it in the way her face went pale, in the way her hands trembled slightly before she set the folder down. That's not fair. Fair. Nathan's voice dropped to something dangerous. You want to talk about fair? I lost everything because I tried to do the right thing. My career, my reputation, my future. I spent 8 years thinking I'd made the wrong choice, wondering if I should have just kept my mouth shut and let your father bury the truth. But you didn't. No, I didn't, because unlike you, unlike him, I couldn't live with myself knowing people were in danger. Scarlett's eyes flashed. You think this is easy for me? You think I enjoy finding out my father is a criminal? That everything I've built is based on lies? I think you're more worried about the company than the people your father hurt. That's not true. Isn't it? They stood there, 6 feet apart and 8 years of anger between them, both breathing hard. Why did you really call me up here? Nathan asked. It wasn't to apologize. You're not sorry. You're just trying to figure out if I'm going to be a problem. No. Scarlett's voice softened. I called you up here because I needed to see you, to understand what happened, to know if the man I loved was still in there somewhere, or if my father destroyed him completely. The man I loved. Past tense. Nathan felt something crack in his chest. That man's gone, Scarlett. He died the day your father told him to choose between his principles and his future. And what did you choose? Neither. I chose my daughter. Scarlett's expression shifted to something Nathan couldn't quite read. Tell me about her, please. Why? Because you disappeared and I mourned you. I spent years wondering what happened, if you were alive or dead, or just so disgusted with me that you couldn't stand to say goodbye. And now you're here with a daughter I didn't know existed, and I need to understand how we got from there to here. Nathan wanted to walk out. Wanted to tell her it was none of her business, that she'd lost the right to know anything about his life the moment she believed her father's lies. But something in her face stopped him. She looked lost. Actually, lost. The powerful CEO facade had cracked, and underneath was just a woman trying to make sense of how everything she thought she knew had turned out to be wrong. Her name is Emma, Nathan said finally. She's 6. She's deaf. Her mother died when she was 6 months old. Scarlett's hand went to her mouth. Nathan, Lily and I weren't together. Not really. But she was pregnant, and the baby was mine, and I wasn't going to abandon them. He shoved his hands in his pockets. Your father gave me a choice. Stay quiet about Riverside or lose everything. I was going to fight him anyway, but then Lily called. And suddenly it wasn't just about me anymore. So you left. So I left. Moved to Pennsylvania, did construction work, sent Lily money. When Emma was born, I visited every weekend. And when Lily died, his voice caught. When Lily died, I came back to New York with a baby and no prospects and no way to support her doing anything except maintenance work. You could have told me. I would have helped. Would you? Your father told you I was a thief, that I'd used you. You believed him then. Why would you have believed me? Scarlett didn't have an answer for that. I've been working in this building for 4 years, Nathan continued. 4 years, and we never ran into each other. Not once. You know why? Because people like you don't see people like me. We're invisible. We fix your toilets and your air conditioning, and you walk right past us like we're furniture. That's not... It is. You rode those executive elevators every day, and I was 3 floors down in the basement keeping your building running, and we might as well have been on different planets. Scarlett looked like she might cry. Nathan hadn't seen her cry since the night her mother died, back when they were 22 and still believed in forever. I'm sorry, she whispered, for all of it, for not believing in you, for not looking harder, for not seeing you. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know, but I need you to know I mean it anyway. His radio crackled. Brooks, you still on 42? Got another call on 28. Nathan grabbed the radio. Copy. On my way. He turned to leave. Nathan, wait. Scarlett's voice stopped him at the door. I want to make this right. I don't know how, but I want to try. You can't make this right. What's done is done. Let me help you. You shouldn't be doing maintenance work. You're a brilliant architect. Let me... No. The word came out harder than he intended. I don't need your charity, Scarlett. I don't need you to save me. I've been taking care of myself and my daughter for 6 years, and we're doing fine. Are you? Are you really fine? Nathan thought about the tiny apartment, the couch he slept on, the constant worry about money and Emma's medical bills, and what would happen if he lost this job. We're fine, he said again, and then he left before she could see that he was lying. The rest of the day was a blur of work orders and repairs and trying not to think about Scarlett's face when he walked out. Nathan threw himself into the work, grateful for the physical exhaustion that came with crawling through ceiling spaces and hauling equipment upstairs. By the time he picked Emma up from school, his body ached and his mind was blessedly empty. Emma had a good day. She told him about it in the rapid-fire signing that meant she was excited, her hands flying through descriptions of art class and recess and the new kid who also knew sign language. Can we get pizza? She asked as they walked home from the subway. We had pizza last week, but I want pizza. You always want pizza. That's because pizza is the best food. Nathan couldn't argue with that logic. They stopped at the corner place, the one where Tony knew them by name and always gave Emma extra cheese. Emma ate 3 slices and got sauce all over her face, and Nathan thought maybe this was enough. Maybe this simple life was all they needed. They were walking home, Emma's hand in his, when she stopped suddenly. Daddy, that lady is staring at us. Nathan looked up. Scarlett stood on this corner across the street, still in her work clothes, looking completely out of place in this neighborhood. She saw them, and her entire face changed, went soft in a way he'd never seen before. Emma tugged on his hand. Do you know her? Yeah, baby, I know her. She's pretty. Don't let it fool you. Scarlett crossed the street, navigating the evening foot traffic with the kind of confidence that came from always expecting people to get out of your way. They usually did. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes locked on Emma. Hi, she said softly. Emma looked at Nathan, questioning. Emma, this is Scarlett. She's... He paused, trying to find words that made sense. She's someone I used to know. Nice to meet you, Emma signed politely, the way Nathan had taught her. Scarlett's face crumpled. just for a second, but Nathan saw it. Saw the moment she realized Emma couldn't hear her. I don't... Scarlett looked at Nathan helplessly. I don't know sign language. She can read lips, Nathan said, if you face her and speak clearly. Scarlett knelt down, bringing herself to Emma's level. It's nice to meet you too, Emma. You're very beautiful. Emma beamed. She said, I'm beautiful, she signed to Nathan. I saw. Tell her thank you. You can tell her yourself, remember? Look at her face and speak. Emma turned back to Scarlett, concentrated hard, and said out loud, "Thank you." The words were slightly slurred. She was still working on pronunciation, but clear enough. Scarlett's eyes filled with tears. You're welcome, sweetheart. Emma looked at the cracked phone in Scarlett's hand. Your phone is broken. Scarlett followed Emma's gaze, managed a smile. Yes, it is. I dropped it. My daddy can fix things. He's really good at fixing things. I know he is. Nathan cleared his throat. What are you doing here, Scarlett? I needed to see you, to talk to you. She stood up, still holding that broken phone like a security blanket. Not about work. About everything else. This isn't a good time. Nathan, please, just give me 5 minutes. Emma was watching them both, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Is she your friend? She signed to Nathan. It's complicated. That means no, Emma signed with the blunt honesty of 6-year-olds everywhere. Scarlett surprised him by laughing, a real laugh, not the practiced social smile he'd seen in all those internet photos. She's right. That does mean no. Emma, baby, go ahead and start up the stairs. I'll be right there. You promise? I promise. Emma gave Scarlett one last curious look, then headed toward their building, stopping every few steps to check that Nathan was still there. She's amazing, Scarlett said quietly. She looks just like her mother, I know. I was going to say she looks happy. That's because of you. Nathan didn't know what to say to that. I followed you, Scarlett admitted. I'm sorry. That's creepy. But I needed to see where you lived, how you lived. I needed to understand. And now you do. No. She shook her head. Now I have more questions than before. How do you do this, Nathan? Work all day, raise a daughter alone, make her that happy when you're barely surviving. I'm not barely surviving. We're fine. You sleep on a couch. I saw through the window. His jaw tightened. You were spying on me. I was trying to understand how the man I loved ended up here. Well, now you know. Satisfied? No, I'm furious. Her voice rose. I'm furious that my father did this to you, that you've spent 8 years struggling when you should have been designing buildings, that Emma... She stopped, swallowed hard. That Emma has a father who works himself to death instead of doing what he was meant to do. I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do. I'm taking care of my daughter. You could do both, if you'd let me help. I don't want your help. Why not? Because of pride? Because you're angry at me? Because I don't trust you. The words came out brutal and honest. You're Richard Bennett's daughter. You run his company. You've spent the last 3 years covering up his crimes and protecting his legacy. Why would I trust anything you say? That hit her like a physical blow. Nathan saw her flinch, saw her eyes go bright with tears she refused to let fall. You're right, she said quietly. You're absolutely right not to trust me. I haven't given you any reason to. So why are you here? Because I can't stop thinking about that elevator, about your face when you saw me, about everything we lost. We didn't lose anything. You chose your father over me. That was your choice. I didn't choose anything. He lied to me, and I believed him because he was my father, and I was 22 and stupid. Her voice broke. I loved you, Nathan. I loved you so much it scared me. And when you disappeared, when my father told me you'd betrayed us, it broke something in me. Good. Now you know how it feels. He regretted the words the moment they left his mouth, regretted the cruelty, even if she deserved it. Scarlett wiped at her eyes, smearing mascara. I deserve that. I deserve all of it. But Emma doesn't. She deserves better than watching her father kill himself working a job he hates. I don't hate my job. Don't you? Nathan looked away, looked at his building, at the rusted fire escape and the cracked windows and the life he'd built from nothing. It pays the bills. It keeps Emma fed. That's enough. It's not enough.
You were meant for more. Maybe I was, but that man is gone.
I don't believe that. Believe what you want. I need to go. Emma's waiting. He started toward the building. I'm not giving up on this, Scarlett called after him. On you. I know you don't believe me, and I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm going to prove to you that I'm not my father. Nathan stopped, turned back. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She looked small standing there on the street corner in her expensive suit, clutching her broken phone, tears streaking her makeup. She looked nothing like the powerful CEO and everything like the girl he used to know. Nathan felt something shift in his chest, something dangerous. Don't, he said quietly. Don't come back here. Don't follow me. Don't try to fix this. Just let it go. I can't. You have to. Why? Because Emma's starting to like you, and when you disappear back to your real life, she's going to be hurt. And I can't, his voice cracked. I can't watch someone else hurt my daughter. Understanding dawned in Scarlett's eyes. I wouldn't. I would never hurt her. You don't get to make that promise. You don't know if you can keep it. He walked away before she could respond, taking the stairs 2 at a time, his heart pounding. Emma was waiting in the hallway outside their apartment. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. You're lying, I can tell. Nathan unlocked the door, tried to smile. When did you get so smart? I was born smart. You always say so. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than usual, cramped. Nathan looked at it through Scarlett's eyes. The secondhand furniture, the peeling paint, the stacks of library books because they couldn't afford to buy new ones. Emma tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always. Was that lady your girlfriend? Nathan sat down on the couch, pulled Emma onto his lap. A long time ago, yeah. She was. What happened? Life happened. We went different directions. Do you still love her? Kids. They asked the impossible questions with such casual innocence, like they didn't know they were ripping your heart open. I don't know, baby. She was crying, I saw. I know. Did you make her cry? Maybe. Probably. Emma was quiet for a moment, her small hands resting on his. My teacher says when we make people cry, we should say sorry. It's more complicated than that. Everything is complicated with grown-ups. Nathan laughed despite everything. Yeah, it is. I liked her, Emma signed. She has nice eyes, like the park in summer. Green. Emma meant green, but she'd never seen enough green spaces in the city to have words for all the different shades. Yeah, Nathan said quietly. She does. That night after Emma was asleep, Nathan stood at the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Scarlett was in her penthouse apartment, probably regretting the decision to follow him home, probably realizing how messy and complicated his life was. Or maybe not. Maybe she was serious. Maybe she really did want to fix things, and that terrified him more than anything. Because 8 years ago, he'd loved Scarlett Bennett with everything he had. He'd imagined their whole future together, marriage, kids, growing old, designing buildings side by side. And when that future disappeared, when her father destroyed it with lies and threats, it had nearly killed Nathan. He'd survived by building walls, by focusing only on Emma, on work, on getting through each day, by not letting himself want anything more than what he had. But now those walls were cracking. Now he was thinking about green eyes and broken phones and the way Scarlett had looked at Emma like she was something precious. Now he was in danger of wanting again. And wanting, Nathan had learned, was the fastest way to get hurt. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but it was late, and unknown numbers at night usually meant trouble. Hello? Nathan, it's me. Scarlett's voice, soft and tentative. Don't hang up, please. How did you get my personal number? Same way my father did. I own the company. I have access to employee records. He should be angry about that. Should be furious about the invasion of privacy. But mostly he was just tired. What do you want, Scarlett? I want to tell you I'm sorry. For tonight. For following you. For making everything harder. Okay. You told me. Now let me sleep. Wait, there's something else. She paused. I'm holding a press conference next week. I'm going to tell the truth about Riverside, about what my father did,
About the settlements. All of it. Nathan sat up. Your what? I can't keep covering this up. You were right. The company isn't worth protecting if it's built on lies. Scarlett, if you do that,
I'll probably lose everything. I know. The board will force me out, we'll face lawsuits, the company might not survive. Her voice was steady now, determined. But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. At least I'll know I did the right thing. This is crazy. You think I don't know that? I've spent 3 days talking to lawyers. They all think I'm insane, but I can't be my father, Nathan. I won't be.
He didn't know what to say. Didn't know if this was courage or self-destruction or something in between. I need you to know, Scarlett continued, that I'm doing this because it's right. Not to impress you, not to win you back, just because someone needs to tell the truth, and it should be me. When? Monday, 10 a.m. The press will be there. My father will probably try to stop me. It's going to be ugly. Yeah, it is. I know you don't trust me, but I needed you to hear it from me first, before it becomes public. Nathan stared out the window at the lights of Manhattan. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Richard Bennett was probably sleeping soundly, confident in his power and his control. He was about to lose both. Thank you, Nathan said quietly, for telling me. You're welcome. A pause. Nathan, will you be there? At the press conference? I don't think that's a good idea. Right, of course. I just thought, never mind. Scarlett? Yeah? What you're doing. It's brave, really brave and stupid, but mostly brave. He heard her laugh, soft and sad. High praise from you. It's the truth. The truth, right. She took a breath. Good night, Nathan. Good night. He sat there for a long time after she hung up, his phone in his hand, his mind racing. Monday. 3 days away. 3 days until Scarlett Bennett burned her whole life down to tell the truth he'd been carrying for 8 years. 3 days until everything changed again. Nathan thought about Emma, asleep in the next room. Thought about the life they'd built, small and simple and safe. Thought about what might happen if Scarlett's press conference blew up in her face, if Richard decided to retaliate, if Nathan got dragged into the fallout. He should run, should take Emma and disappear the way he did 8 years ago, should protect them both from whatever storm was coming. But he was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of pretending the man he used to be was completely dead. Maybe it was time to see if any part of him had survived after all. Monday morning arrived too fast and too slow at the same time, the way important days always did. Nathan woke up before his alarm, staring at the ceiling while the sun crept through the blinds and painted stripes across the wall. Emma was still asleep in the next room, curled up with the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was a baby. He'd told himself he wasn't going to the press conference, told himself a dozen times over the weekend. But his hands had already laid out his only dress shirt the night before, the one he wore to parent-teacher conferences and Emma's school performances, the one that said he was trying, even if it was 8 years old and the collar was starting to fray. Nathan got up, made coffee, and tried not to think about what Scarlett was about to do. Tried not to think about Richard Bennett's face when his daughter destroyed everything he'd built on lies. Tried not to think about what it meant that part of him wanted to be there to see it. Emma wandered out of her bedroom around 7, her hair sticking up in every direction, still half asleep. She climbed onto his lap without a word, burrowing into his chest the way she did when she needed comfort or just wanted to be close. Nathan held her, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing, and wondered if he was making a mistake. His phone rang. Jenkins. Yeah? You coming in today? Jenkins sounded suspicious, because there's a weird vibe in the building. Security's all tense, and I heard the executive floor is on lockdown. I'm taking a personal day. Since when do you take personal days? Since today. Jenkins was quiet for a moment. This got something to do with that CEO calling you up to her office last week. Maybe. Brooks, whatever you're thinking about doing, think harder. Already did. And I'm doing it anyway. Jenkins sighed, the kind of sigh that said he'd seen too many stupid decisions in his lifetime to be surprised by one more. Your funeral. Probably. After he hung up, Emma pulled back to look at him. Why are you wearing your fancy shirt? I have somewhere to be this morning. Where? Downtown, just for a little while.
Can I come? No, baby, you've got school. Emma's face scrunched up in that way that meant she was about to argue, so Nathan headed her off. Mrs. Chen is going to pick you up and take you to school with Marcus. I already arranged it. You never arrange things with Mrs. Chen unless something big is happening. Nothing big, just boring adult stuff. You're lying again. Your eye does the thing. Nathan touched his left eye automatically. What thing? It twitches. Right there. She poked the corner of his eye. When you lie to me, it twitches. Since when? Since always. I've been doing experiments, 6 years old, and already running experiments on him. Nathan didn't know whether to be proud or terrified. Okay, he admitted. Something big is happening, but it's not bad. At least I don't think it's bad. I'm just going to watch something happen. What thing? Someone is going to tell the truth about something that happened a long time ago, and I want to be there when they do it. Emma thought about this seriously, her small face solemn in the morning light. Is it the pretty lady? The one with summer eyes? Nathan's chest tightened. Yeah, it's her. Are you going to help her? I don't know if she needs my help. Everyone needs help sometimes. You always say so. You're too smart for your own good. I know, Emma signed with complete confidence. Then she hugged him tight, her arms barely reaching around his neck. Be careful, Daddy. Always am? No, you're not. You climbed on the roof last week to fix the satellite dish and you could have fallen. How did you… Never mind. Eat your breakfast. Mrs. Chen will be here in 20 minutes. By 8:30, Emma was off to school, and Nathan was on the subway heading downtown. The train was packed with Monday morning commuters, everyone in their work clothes, staring at their phones or the ads above the windows, or nothing at all. Nathan stood by the doors, holding the pole, watching the stations blur past. He got off at Chambers Street and walked the 3 blocks to Bennett Global's headquarters. The building looked different from the outside, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. He'd walked past it 1,000 times on his way to work, but never really looked at it. Never let himself think about the fact that the woman he used to love ran an empire from somewhere up in those clouds. There was a crowd already gathering in the plaza out front. News vans, reporters with cameras, people with notebooks and recorders. Nathan hung back at the edge, hands in his pockets, trying to blend in. A makeshift podium had been set up near the main entrance, microphones clustered like metal flowers. Security guards stood at intervals, looking alert and nervous. Through the glass doors, Nathan could see movement in the lobby. People in suits rushing around, phones pressed to their ears. Pretty crazy, huh? A woman next to him said. She had a press badge clipped to her jacket. CEO calling an emergency press conference with 0 notice. Something big must be going down. Yeah, Nathan said, must be. You a reporter? No, just interested. She gave him a curious look but didn't push it. At 9:55, the glass doors opened and Scarlett walked out. Nathan's breath caught. She wore a black suit, simple and professional, her hair pulled back. No jewelry except small earrings. No makeup that he could see. She looked younger than she had in her office and scared and absolutely determined. Behind her came 3 other people, 2 men in expensive suits who had to be lawyers, and a woman Nathan didn't recognize. No sign of Richard Bennett. Scarlett approached the podium, and the crowd pressed forward. Cameras started clicking. Someone shouted a question that got lost in the noise. She waited until they quieted down, her hands resting on the podium, knuckles white. Thank you all for coming on short notice. Her voice carried across the plaza, steady, despite the nerves Nathan could see in her shoulders. I'm Scarlett Bennett, CEO of Bennett Global Industries. I called this press conference because I need to tell you the truth about something that happened 8 years ago. Something my father, the former CEO, covered up. Something I've been complicit in hiding for the past 3 years. The reporters went crazy. Questions flew from every direction, overlapping, demanding. Scarlett held up a hand. Please, let me finish. They settled again, barely. In 2018, Bennett Global completed a luxury residential development called Riverside Luxury Towers. The project consisted of 3 buildings with a total of 240 units. During construction, concerns were raised about the materials being used. Specifically, the concrete mixture, rebar specifications, and waterproofing systems all failed to meet city building codes. Nathan's heart was pounding. She was really doing it, really burning it all down. These concerns were brought to my father by a junior architect named Nathan Brooks. Scarlett's voice wavered slightly on his name, but she pushed through. Mr. Brooks attempted to halt construction and report the violations. In response, my father threatened him, blacklisted him from the architecture industry, and forced him to leave the company under duress. More shouting from the reporters. Nathan saw phones being pulled out, people typing frantically. The buildings were completed using substandard materials, Scarlett continued. Over the past 5 years, we've paid out settlements to 37 families who experienced structural issues, foundation cracks, and water damage. We paid these families to relocate and sign non-disclosure agreements. We prioritize protecting the company's reputation over the safety and well-being of the people who trusted us. Someone yelled, "Did you know about this when you became CEO?" Scarlett's jaw tightened. "No. I discovered the truth 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've been working with our legal team to determine the full extent of the damage and our liability." "What about your father? Where is he?" "My father was removed from his position on the board of directors last Friday. He no longer has any role in this company." The plaza erupted. Nathan watched it unfold, watched Scarlett stand there in front of the cameras and take responsibility for sins that weren't even hers. Watched her throw away everything to tell the truth he'd been carrying alone for 8 years. One of the lawyers leaned in, whispered something. Scarlett nodded, then continued. "As of today, Bennett Global is suspending all ongoing luxury residential projects, pending a full safety audit. We're also establishing a compensation fund for anyone affected by the Riverside development. If you lived in those buildings at any time since their completion, you're entitled to file a claim." "How much is this going to cost the company?" "Conservatively, $300 million, possibly more." Someone whistled. Another reporter shouted, "The stock is going to tank." "Probably," Scarlett agreed. "Which is why I'm also announcing my resignation as CEO, effective at the end of this week." Nathan felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. She hadn't mentioned that on the phone, hadn't said she was stepping down completely. The reporters were losing their minds now, shouting over each other, demanding answers. Scarlett held up both hands. "I'm not taking questions at this time. My legal team will be available later today to provide additional information, but I wanted you to hear this from me directly, not through a corporate press release or a leaked memo. What my father did was wrong. What I did in continuing to cover it up was wrong. And I'm not going to let this company hide from that anymore." She stepped back from the podium. The lawyers immediately surrounded her, creating a human shield as they moved toward the building entrance. Cameras followed her every step. Nathan stood frozen in the crowd, watching her disappear through the glass doors. "Holy hell," the reporter next to him said. "That's career suicide." "Why would she do that?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Nathan said quietly. "The right thing? She just destroyed a multi-billion-dollar company." "No, her father did that. She just stopped lying about it." The woman looked at him strangely, then shrugged and went to chase down one of the lawyers for a quote. Nathan stayed where he was as the crowd dispersed, reporters running off to file their stories, cameras being packed up. The plaza slowly emptied until it was just him and a couple of security guards standing around looking shell-shocked. His phone rang. Unknown number. Again. "Nathan Brooks?" A man's voice, clipped and professional. "Yeah. This is David Chen, Senior Counsel for Bennett Global. I'm calling to inform you that effective immediately, your employment has been terminated." Nathan had been expecting it, but it still hit hard. "On what grounds?" "At-will employment, no grounds required. Your final paycheck will be direct deposited by Friday. HR will be in touch about COBRA and your 401k. Do you have any questions?" "Just one. Did Richard Bennett order this?" A pause. "Mr. Bennett is no longer with the company." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm authorized to give. Have a good day, Mr. Brooks." The line went dead. Nathan stared at his phone, then up at the building towering above him. Somewhere in there, Richard Bennett was probably watching his empire crumble and deciding who to punish for it. Nathan had just made the list. He should feel angry, should feel scared about losing his job, his income, his ability to provide for Emma. But mostly he just felt tired. Tired of fighting, tired of losing, tired of Richard Bennett having power over his life. "Nathan?" He turned. Scarlett stood in the building entrance, still flanked by the lawyers but staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read.
You came, she said. Yeah, I came.
She said something to the lawyers, who looked unhappy but moved away, giving them space. Scarlett walked over slowly, like she was approaching something that might bolt. I didn't think you would. I didn't think I would either. Did you hear all of it? You really did it. I really did. She tried to smile, but it came out shaky. My phone's been ringing nonstop for the past hour. Board members demanding my resignation immediately. Investors threatening lawsuits. The press tearing me apart on social media. And your father? Her face went hard. Hasn't called. Hasn't texted. Nothing. He will. Once he figures out his next move. Let him. I'm done being afraid of him. Nathan believed her. She looked different somehow, lighter, despite everything she'd just lost. Like telling the truth had lifted a weight she didn't even know she'd been carrying. I'm sorry, he said. For what? That you had to do this alone. That you had to be the one to fix his mess. I wasn't alone, you were here. Her eyes searched his face. That means more than you know. I got fired, by the way, about 5 minutes ago. Scarlett's face went pale. What? HR called, terminated my employment effective immediately. That son of a... She pulled out her phone, started dialing. Nathan caught her wrist. Don't! He can't do this. He doesn't even work for the company anymore. Apparently he still has friends who do. I'll fix this. I'm still CEO for 4 more days. I can reverse it. I can... Scarlett, stop. She did, but her eyes were blazing. He's punishing you for what I did. Yeah, that's kind of his thing. It's not fair. None of this is fair. But I'm done letting him control my life. Nathan let go of her wrist. You were right. About me killing myself doing a job I hate. About Emma deserving better. About all of it. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. One of the lawyers called out. Ms. Bennett, we need to go. The emergency board meeting is in 20 minutes. Scarlett glanced back, then at Nathan. I have to... Go. Handle your crisis. I'll be fine. Will you? She reached out, almost touched his arm, then pulled back. Because I just blew up both our lives, and I'm not sure either of us is actually fine. We will be. Eventually. Nathan... She stopped, started again. Can I see you later? After the board meeting? I know I don't have the right to ask, but why? Because I need to know you're okay. Because I need to tell you something I should have said 8 years ago. Because I'm terrified of facing the rest of this day alone. The honesty in her voice cracked something open in Nathan's chest. Where? Anywhere. Your choice. Nathan thought about his tiny apartment, about Emma coming home from school, about the life he'd built that was private and separate from all of this. There's a coffee shop on Amsterdam and 74th, Joe's. Meet me there at 6. I'll be there. She started to leave, then turned back. Nathan, thank you for believing I could do the right thing, even when I didn't believe it myself. Before he could respond, she was gone, swept away by lawyers and security and the chaos of her collapsing world. Nathan stood in the empty plaza for a long time, trying to process what had just happened, trying to figure out what came next. His phone rang. Jenkins. Turn on the news, Jenkins said without preamble. Any channel, you're not going to believe this. I was there. You were... Brooks, what the hell is going on? Long story. The CEO just resigned. She admitted to covering up building violations. The stock dropped 40% in 20 minutes. People are losing their minds. Jenkins paused. And you were there. Yeah. Why? Nathan looked up at the building one more time, at all that glass and steel and money. Because someone needed to tell the truth, and I wanted to watch it happen. Well, congratulations. The whole company's probably going to implode now. We'll all be out of jobs by Friday. I got fired this morning. Jenkins swore, long and creative. This have something to do with the elevator thing? Everything has to do with the elevator thing. I'm too old for this drama. You know that, right? I'm 63 years old. I was supposed to retire next year. Now I'm going to be looking for work. I'm sorry, Jenkins. Not your fault? Well, maybe a little bit your fault, but mostly that CEO's fault. And her bastard father. Another pause. You okay, kid? The question surprised Nathan. Jenkins wasn't the emotional type, wasn't the type to ask about feelings or offer comfort. I don't know yet, Nathan said honestly. Ask me in a week. Fair enough. Listen, if you need a reference, I'll tell whoever asks that you're the best maintenance guy I've ever worked with. Pain in the ass, but good at your job. Thanks, Jenkins. Don't thank me yet. Finding work is going to be hell for all of us. After he hung up, Nathan walked. He didn't have anywhere to be, no job to go to, no emergency calls to answer. So he just walked through Lower Manhattan, past office buildings and construction sites, and all the architecture he used to dream about creating. His phone kept buzzing with news alerts. The story was spreading fast. Major outlets were picking it up, analyzing the financial implications, interviewing industry experts about what this meant for the construction sector. Somewhere in the noise, Nathan caught a headline. Former architect's whistleblowing led to Bennett global scandal. Someone had done their homework, had connected the dots, had figured out who he was and why he mattered. Nathan's phone rang again. A reporter, asking for comment. He declined and blocked the number. 2 more calls came in immediately. He turned his phone off. The coffee shop he'd told Scarlett about was in his neighborhood, close enough to Emma's school that he could walk there after pickup. It was a hole-in-the-wall place with mismatched furniture and coffee that tasted like it had been made sometime last week. But the owner didn't mind if you sat for hours and the Wi-Fi was free. Nathan got there early, ordered coffee he didn't drink, and sat in the back corner watching the door. Emma was with Mrs. Chen until 7. That gave him an hour with Scarlett, assuming she actually showed up. Assuming the board meeting didn't run long or she didn't get arrested or the world didn't end in some other spectacular fashion. At 6:15, Nathan started to think she wasn't coming. At 6:20, the door opened and Scarlett walked in. She changed out of the black suit into jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but casual. Her hair was down, and without makeup, she looked exhausted and young, and nothing like the CEO who'd stood at that podium 5 hours ago. She saw him, and her whole face relaxed. Nathan stood up as she approached. "You look terrible." "Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special." "How'd the board meeting go?" Scarlett dropped into the chair across from him like all her strings had been cut. "About as well as you'd expect. They voted to accept my resignation immediately instead of waiting until Friday. I'm officially unemployed as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. Welcome to the club. Do we get jackets?" "Just existential dread and uncertainty about the future." She laughed, but it sounded broken. "I've spent my entire adult life at that company. Started as an intern when I was 19. Worked my way up through every department, and today I walked out with a box of personal items and an escort from security." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I did this to myself." She looked at him, and her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. "No, that's not true. I did this because you made me remember what integrity looks like, what it costs." "Integrity is overrated," says the man who gave up everything rather than compromise his principles. Nathan didn't have an answer for that. The barista came over and Scarlett ordered tea. They sat in silence until it arrived, steam curling up from the chipped ceramic mug. "My father called," Scarlett said eventually. "Right after the board voted me out." "What did he say?" "That I was an idiot. That I destroyed everything he built. That I betrayed the family." She wrapped her hands around the mug. "Then he told me I was dead to him and hung up." "Scarlett, I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. Because for the first time in my life, I don't have to wonder if I'm becoming him. I know for certain I'm not." "You were never him." "Wasn't I? I covered up Riverside for 3 years, Nathan. I knew something was wrong with those buildings, and I kept paying people to stay quiet. I told myself I was protecting jobs, protecting shareholders, protecting the company's reputation. But really, I was just protecting my father's legacy. And now you're not." "Now I'm not," she agreed. "Now I'm unemployed, probably unhireable, and definitely going to be sued by approximately everyone. But at least I can sleep at night." Nathan took a drink of his terrible coffee. "You said you needed to tell me something you should have said 8 years ago." Scarlett's hands tightened on her mug. "Right, that." "You don't have to." "I do. Because if I don't say it now, I never will." She took a breath. 8 years ago, when you disappeared, I was devastated, but I was also relieved.
That wasn't what Nathan expected. Relieved? You were so good, Nathan, so certain about right and wrong. You made me want to be better, and that was terrifying. Because being better meant standing up to my father, and I wasn't ready to do that. She looked down at her tea. When he told me you'd betrayed us, part of me wanted to believe it. Because if you were a liar and a thief, then I didn't have to feel guilty about choosing him over you. Scarlett, or shame, in. Let me finish. Please. She looked up, and her eyes were swimming with tears. I spent 8 years convincing myself I'd made the right choice, that you were the problem, that my father was protecting me. And all that time, you were out there raising a daughter alone and working a job you hated because I was too much of a coward to question the man who lied to both of us. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have trusted you, should have fought for you, should have done literally anything except believe his story without question. A tear slipped down her cheek. I'm so sorry, Nathan, for all of it, for not being brave enough then, for not being the person you needed me to be. Nathan reached across the table, caught the tear with his thumb. You were 22, I was 24. We were kids. That's not an excuse. No, but it's the truth. They sat like that for a moment, his hand against her face, her eyes closed. Then Scarlett's phone rang. She pulled back, checked the screen, and her face went white. It's my lawyer, the one handling the Riverside cases. Answer it. She did, putting it on speaker. Michelle? Scarlett, we have a problem. The lawyer's voice was tight with stress. Richards filed an injunction. He's claiming you had no authority to establish the compensation fund or suspend the projects. Says you exceeded your role as CEO and damaged the company's financial position. He can't do that. The board already accepted my resignation. He's not suing you as an individual. He's suing the company, claiming your actions were illegal. If the judge grants the injunction, everything you announced this morning gets frozen. Scarlett looked at Nathan, panic in her eyes. Can he win? Maybe, if he can prove you acted outside your authority or in bad faith. Michelle paused. He's also filed a defamation suit against you personally, claims you lied about his involvement and damaged his reputation. I didn't lie. Everything I said was documented. I know, but he's got 3 lawyers and unlimited resources. This is going to get ugly, Scarlett. Really ugly. After she hung up, Scarlett just sat there, staring at nothing. He's going to destroy me, she said quietly. He's going to drag this out in court for years. I don't have the money to fight him. I don't have... Yes, you do. She looked at Nathan. What? You have the truth. And you have me. Nathan, you don't have to... I was there. I documented everything. I still have copies of the engineering reports, the emails, all of it. He leaned forward. I can testify. I can prove everything you said was true. If you do that, he'll come after you too. Let him. I'm done being afraid of Richard Bennett. You'll lose everything. I already lost everything 8 years ago. What's he going to take now? My studio apartment? My non-existent savings? Nathan smiled grimly. The only thing I have left that matters is Emma, and he can't touch her. You don't know that. Yeah, I do, because if he tries, I'll burn his whole world down, and he knows it. Scarlett studied his face. You mean that? Every word. She reached across the table, took his hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling. Why? Why would you do this for me? Nathan looked at their joined hands, at the way her fingers fit between his like no time had passed at all. Because you stood up there today and told the truth, even though it cost you everything. Because you proved you're not your father, and because... He stopped. The words stuck in his throat. Because, she prompted gently. Because maybe that man you used to love isn't completely dead after all. Maybe there's still enough of him left to remember what it feels like to fight for something that matters. Scarlett's breath caught. Nathan! His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. You should check that, Scarlett said. Nathan pulled out his phone. 7 missed calls from Mrs. Chen. 3 voicemails. His stomach dropped. He called back immediately. Mrs. Chen, what's wrong? Is Emma okay? Emma's fine, Nathan. She's right here, but you need to come get her, right now. Why? What happened? There's a man here. Says he's from Bennett Global's legal team.
He's asking questions about you, about Emma, about how you're caring for her. Mrs. Chen's voice dropped to a whisper. Nathan, he's threatening to call Child Protective Services. The world tilted. Scarlett was already standing, grabbing her coat. Where? Nathan gave her the address, already moving toward the door. They ran. The subway felt like it was moving through concrete. Nathan stood by the doors, one hand gripping the pole so hard his knuckles went white, the other clutching his phone like it might somehow make the train go faster. Scarlett stood beside him, her face pale and set. He wouldn't, she said for the third time. He wouldn't go after Emma. That's too far, even for him. Nathan didn't answer. Didn't trust himself to speak without his voice breaking. The train lurched to a stop at 72nd Street. They pushed through the crowd, took the stairs 2 at a time, and ran the 4 blocks to Mrs. Chen's building. Mrs. Chen lived on the 2nd floor of a brownstone that had been converted into apartments sometime in the 70s. Her door was already open when they arrived, and Nathan could see her standing in the hallway, her arms crossed, her expression thunderous. He's in the living room, she said quietly. Emma's in Marcus's bedroom. She doesn't know what's happening, but she's scared. Nathan moved toward the living room, but Mrs. Chen caught his arm. Nathan, be smart. He's recording everything on his phone. Don't give him ammunition. Nathan nodded, though every instinct screamed at him to punch whoever was in that room and deal with the consequences later. The man sitting on Mrs. Chen's couch was in his 40s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Nathan's monthly rent. He had a briefcase open on the coffee table and his phone propped up on a stack of books, camera pointed at the door. Mr. Brooks? The man stood, offered his hand. I'm Gerald Hutchins, attorney representing Bennett Global Industries. Nathan ignored the hand. What the hell are you doing here? I'm conducting an investigation into your fitness as a parent. On whose authority? Mr. Richard Bennett's. As a concerned citizen who's become aware of certain circumstances regarding your daughter's welfare. My daughter's welfare is none of his business. Hutchins smiled, cold and professional. Actually, when a child's safety is potentially at risk, it becomes everyone's business. I have some questions about your living situation, your employment status, and your ability to provide adequate care for a special needs child. Don't call her that. She's deaf, is she not? That qualifies as a disability under... Get out. Mr. Brooks, if you refuse to cooperate, I'll have no choice but to file a report with Child Protective Services recommending an immediate investigation. Scarlett stepped forward. You're not filing anything. Hutchins' eyes widened slightly. Ms. Bennett, I didn't realize you were involved in this situation. I wasn't, until about 30 seconds ago when I realized my father sent you to threaten a 6-year-old child. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm ensuring that a vulnerable child is being properly cared for. By ambushing her caretaker and recording conversations without consent? I have every right to... Yeah, you have nothing. Scarlett's voice went cold in a way Nathan had never heard before. The CEO voice, the one that probably made boardrooms fall silent. You're here on my father's orders to harass Nathan Brooks in retaliation for my press conference this morning. That's witness intimidation at minimum, possibly criminal harassment. Hutchins' professional smile slipped. That's a serious accusation. And I have lawyers who would love to prove it in court. Want to keep recording this conversation? Because I'll happily repeat everything for the camera. The attorney's hand moved toward his phone. I wouldn't, Scarlett said. That footage becomes evidence the moment you try to use it against Mr. Brooks. A standoff. Hutchins looked between them, calculating. Nathan could see him weighing options, deciding whether Richard Bennett's money was worth whatever trouble Scarlett was threatening. Finally, he reached over and stopped the recording. Mr. Bennett will hear about this. I'm counting on it, Scarlett said. Tell him his daughter says hello, and that if he comes near Nathan or Emma again, I'll make this morning's press conference look like a friendly chat. Hutchins packed up his briefcase with deliberate slowness, making a show of how unbothered he was, but his hands shook slightly when he picked up his phone. At the door, he turned back. This isn't over. Yes, Nathan said quietly. It is. Because if you or anyone else Richard sends shows up anywhere near my daughter again, I'm filing a restraining order. And then I'm calling every reporter who covered Scarlett's press conference and telling them exactly what kind of man Richard Bennett really is.
You signed an NDA 8 years ago. Pretty sure the statute of limitations on enforcing it has passed. Want to test that theory in court?" Hutchins left without another word. The door clicked shut, and Nathan's legs gave out. He sat down hard on Mrs. Chen's couch, his head in his hands, trying to breathe. "Emma," he managed. "Where?" "I'll get her," Mrs. Chen said gently. Scarlett sat beside him, not quite touching. "Are you okay?" "No, not even close." "He's never going to stop, is he?" "Your father. He's going to keep coming after me, after Emma, until—" Nathan's voice cracked. "I can't let him hurt her. I can't." "He won't. I won't let him." "How?" "You don't have power over him anymore. You're not the CEO. I'm just someone who knows where every body is buried," Scarlett said. "And trust me, there are a lot of bodies. Financial irregularities, offshore accounts, bribes to city inspectors that go back 15 years. I documented all of it when I started going through the old files." Nathan looked at her. "You have proof?" "Enough to put him in prison if the prosecutors are interested, which they will be once they finish investigating Riverside." "Why didn't you use it at the press conference?" "Because he's still my father." Her voice went soft. "Because some part of me kept hoping he'd do the right thing on his own, that he'd see what I was trying to do and understand. And now? Now he sent a lawyer to threaten your daughter, so now I stop hoping." Mrs. Chen came back with Emma, who was holding Marcus's hand and looking smaller than usual. When she saw Nathan, she broke free and ran to him. "Daddy, you came!" she signed frantically. "That man was asking questions about us, and Mrs. Chen wouldn't let me come out, and I didn't know what was happening, and—" "It's okay, baby. I'm here. Everything's okay. He said you might not be able to take care of me. He said, he was wrong. Nobody is going to take you away from me. Nobody." Emma buried her face in his chest. Nathan held her tight, feeling her small body trembling, and wanted to find Richard Bennett and show him exactly what happened to men who scared 6-year-old girls. Scarlett knelt down beside them. "Emma, do you remember me?" Emma pulled back slightly, nodded. "I'm really sorry that man scared you. He had no right to do that, and he's never coming back. I promise." "How do you know?" Emma signed. Scarlett glanced at Nathan for help with the translation. He provided it, and she turned back to Emma. "Because I'm going to make sure of it. Your dad and I are going to fix this so nobody bothers you again." "Are you his friend now?" Scarlett looked at Nathan. "I'm trying to be." "Good," Emma signed. "He needs more friends. He only has Mrs. Chen and Jenkins." Mrs. Chen laughed. "Out of the mouths of babes." They stayed for another hour. Emma calmed down, started playing with Marcus again, acting like nothing had happened. Kids were good at that, bouncing back from things that would break adults. But Nathan saw the way she kept looking over to make sure he was still there. Saw the tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there this morning. Richard Bennett had put that tension there, and Nathan was going to make him pay for it. Walking home, Emma between them holding both their hands, Scarlett said quietly, "You can't stay in that apartment." "What?" "If Richard's going after custody, he'll use your living situation against you. 1 bedroom, Emma sleeping there while you take the couch. He'll claim it's unsuitable." "It's all I can afford." "I know. That's why you're going to stay with me." Nathan stopped walking. Emma kept going for a few steps before she realized and turned back, confused. "That's crazy," Nathan said. "No, what's crazy is letting my father manufacture evidence that you're an unfit parent. I have a 3-bedroom apartment sitting empty most of the time. Emma can have her own room, you can have your own room, and Richard can't claim you're living in poverty." "Scarlett, it makes sense strategically. We barely know each other anymore." "Then we'll get to know each other again." She looked down at Emma, who was watching them both with sharp, curious eyes. "Unless you have a better idea?" He didn't. Hated that he didn't. Hated that she was right and that accepting her help felt like admitting defeat. "What are you talking about?" Emma signed. "I can tell it's important." Nathan knelt down. "Scarlett thinks it would be better if we stayed at her apartment for a while, just until some stuff with my old job gets figured out. We'd live with the pretty lady?" "Temporarily." Emma looked at Scarlett, then back at Nathan. "Does she have a TV?" Scarlett smiled. "I have 3. Can I have my own room?" "The biggest one." Emma turned to Nathan. "I think we should do it." "Just like that?"
You're always saying we should try new things. This is a new thing. Kids. They made impossible decisions sound simple. Nathan looked at Scarlett. If we do this, and I'm not saying we are, there have to be rules. Name them. This is temporary, just until the legal stuff settles down. Agreed. Emma comes first, always. If this arrangement isn't working for her, we leave. Of course. And we're not... He gestured vaguely between them. This isn't us getting back together. This is practical. Strategic. Something flickered across Scarlett's face, but she nodded. Practical, strategic. I understand. Okay then. Okay, we're doing it? Emma signed excitedly. Okay, we're doing it. Emma threw her arms around Scarlett's legs, which seemed to surprise both of them. Scarlett looked down at the small person hugging her, and her expression went soft and terrified at the same time. When do you want to move? She asked. Tomorrow, I guess. I don't have much to pack. Tomorrow works. I'll have my assistant. Wait, I don't have an assistant anymore. She laughed, but it sounded brittle. I'll figure it out. Text me when you're ready, and I'll send a car. We can take the subway. With all your stuff and a 6-year-old, let me send a car. Pride made Nathan want to argue. Practicality made him shut up and nod. They reached Nathan's building, and Emma ran ahead to push the button for the elevator that didn't work. Scarlett hung back with Nathan at the entrance. Thank you, he said, for earlier, with that lawyer. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. You didn't have to step in. He was threatening Emma. Of course I stepped in. She looked up at the building, at the cracked facade, and the fire escape zigzagging up the side. This is really where you've been living? For 4 years, Chet. I walked past here once, about 6 months after I became CEO. I was coming back from a site visit in the Bronx, and my driver took this route. I looked up and thought about how different this neighborhood was from mine. Never occurred to me you might be inside one of these buildings. Would it have mattered if you'd known? Yes, she said quietly. It would have mattered. Emma came back, pulling on Nathan's hand. Come on, Daddy. I want to show you something I drew at school. I'm coming, baby. Scarlett stepped back. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. She walked away, her hands in her pockets, looking lost in the middle of the sidewalk. Nathan watched her until she turned the corner, then let Emma pull him inside. The apartment felt different now that he knew they were leaving. Smaller. Shabbier. Nathan looked at the furniture he'd built by hand. The bookshelf that wasn't quite level. The table with one leg shorter than the others that he'd fixed with a folded piece of cardboard. He'd been proud of this place once. Proud that he'd created a home for Emma with nothing but determination and whatever he could afford at the thrift store. Now it just looked like what it was. Proof that he'd failed to give his daughter the life she deserved. Emma climbed onto the couch beside him. Are you sad about leaving? A little. Me too. But also excited. Do you think Scarlett's apartment has a bathtub? Mrs. Rodriguez said some apartments in Manhattan have bathtubs big enough to swim in. I don't know, baby. Can we bring Mr. Elephant? We can bring everything. Emma was quiet for a moment, then signed, Is Scarlett going to be my new mom? Nathan's heart stopped. What? No, baby. We're just staying at her place for a little while. But you like her, I can tell. It's complicated. You always say that. Because it always is. Do you think she likes us? Nathan thought about Scarlett's face when Emma hugged her. The surprise, the fear, the softness. Yeah, I think she does. Good. I like her too. She has kind eyes. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, listening to the building settle and the sound of someone's TV through the thin walls. Tomorrow they'd move to Scarlett's apartment in whatever expensive neighborhood she lived in, and Emma would have her own room with a door that closed, and Nathan would have to figure out how to live in the same space as the woman he'd spent 8 years trying to forget. His phone buzzed. Text from Scarlett. Can't sleep either? Nathan typed back. How'd you know I was awake? Because I know you. You overthink everything. I'm not overthinking. You're definitely overthinking. It's going to be fine. You don't know that. No. But I'm choosing to believe it anyway. Nathan stared at the message. Why are you really doing this? The apartment, standing up to your father. All of it. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally,
Because 8 years ago, I let you walk away without fighting for you. I'm not making that mistake again. Nathan's thumb hovered over the keyboard. He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if he was ready for what it implied. Finally, he typed, "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. You too. Good night, Scarlett. Good night, Nathan."
He set his phone down and closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, he thought about elevators and press conferences and the way Scarlett's voice had broken when she apologized. Thought about Emma's excitement about a new room and Richard Bennett's face when he found out they'd moved in together. Thought about what it might mean to let someone back in after spending years building walls to keep everyone out. The next morning came too fast. Emma woke up at 6, already excited and talking a mile a minute with her hands about what she was going to pack first. Nathan made breakfast while she sorted through her stuffed animals, trying to decide which ones were essential and which ones could be left behind. "Mr. Elephant is definitely coming," she signed, "and Rainbow Bear, and probably Penguin, because he gets lonely. We're taking everything, remember?"
"Oh, right." She looked relieved. "Then everybody's coming." Packing took less time than Nathan expected. 6 years of living in that apartment, and it all fit into 8 cardboard boxes and 3 suitcases. He stood in the empty living room afterward, looking at the dust marks where furniture used to be, and felt like he was erasing evidence that they'd ever been there. "Ready?" Scarlett stood in the doorway. She'd showed up exactly when she said she would, wearing jeans and a jacket, looking more like the girl he used to know than the CEO who'd imploded her company yesterday. "Yeah, we're ready." The car she'd sent was black and clean and completely inappropriate for the neighborhood. Emma climbed in with wide eyes, running her hands over the leather seats. "It's so soft," she signed. "Are we rich now?" "No, baby. We're just borrowing someone else's richness." The drive to Scarlett's building took 20 minutes. Nathan watched the neighborhoods change through the window, from the worn-down Bronx to the sleek Upper Manhattan where buildings had doormen and the sidewalks didn't have cracks. Scarlett's building was on the Upper West Side, all limestone and wrought iron, and the kind of quiet elegance that screamed old money. The doorman greeted her by name and didn't even blink at the boxes being unloaded from the trunk. "Miss Bennett, good morning." "Morning, James. These are my guests, Nathan Brooks and his daughter Emma. They'll be staying with me for a while." James nodded like people moved in with Scarlett all the time. "Of course. I'll make sure they're added to the approved guest list." The elevator, because of course there was an elevator, a real one that worked, was all brass and mirrors. Emma stood in the center, watching their reflections multiply into infinity. "We look like we go on forever," she signed. "We do," Nathan agreed. Scarlett's apartment was on the 14th floor. The doors opened directly into her foyer, not a hallway, not a lobby, but her actual apartment. Nathan stepped out and tried not to stare. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Central Park. Hardwood floors gleamed. The furniture was the kind that appeared in design magazines. Modern, but comfortable. Expensive, but not showy. Emma walked in slowly, her eyes huge. "Daddy, this is like a castle." "It's a little big," Scarlett said, and she actually sounded apologetic. "I bought it 3 years ago when I became CEO. Probably overcompensated." "A little," Nathan agreed faintly. "Emma's room is this way." Scarlett led them down a hallway. "I had it cleaned yesterday, but if you want to change anything, paint it, whatever. It's yours." The room was twice the size of Emma's old bedroom. It had its own bathroom, a walk-in closet, and windows that looked out at the park. The walls were pale blue, neutral, and calm. Emma ran to the window, pressing her hands against the glass. "I can see trees! So many trees!" "There's a park across the street," Scarlett explained. "We can walk there whenever you want." "Can we go now?" "After we unpack." "But Daddy, there are trees." Nathan smiled despite everything. "Later, baby. I promise." Scarlett showed him his room next. Down the hall, equally large, equally nice. It had a real bed, not a couch. A desk by the window, space for all his things and room left over for things he didn't have. "There's a study across the hall," Scarlett said, "and a second bathroom. Kitchen's back toward the main living area. Make yourself at home." "This is..." Nathan didn't know how to finish that sentence. Too much, too generous, too dangerous. "It's just space," Scarlett said quietly.
Space I'm not using. You might as well. They spent the afternoon unpacking. Emma arranged her stuffed animals on the bed with meticulous care, then rearranged them twice. Nathan put his clothes in the closet and felt like a fraud, his thrift store shirts hanging next to empty space meant for a wardrobe he'd never own. Around 4, Scarlett knocked on his open door. I'm ordering dinner. What does Emma like? Pizza. She'd eat pizza every day if I let her. Pizza it is. Any allergies? No. Good. She hesitated in the doorway. This is weird, right? Us living here together? Extremely weird. Okay. Just making sure it wasn't just me. They ate pizza on the floor of the living room because Emma insisted it was more fun than using the table. Scarlett tried to keep up with Emma's rapid-fire signing, asking Nathan for translations, slowly learning the basics. She's getting better, Emma signed. Tell her she's doing good. Emma says you're doing good, with the signing. Scarlett smiled. Tell her thank you, and that she's a very patient teacher. After dinner, Emma wanted to explore the building. They rode the elevator up to the rooftop deck, which had views of the entire city. Emma ran from one side to the other, trying to see everything at once. This is the best place I've ever been, she signed. Nathan stood at the railing next to Scarlett, watching the sun set over the Hudson. You didn't have to do all this. I know. So why did you? Scarlett looked at him, and in the fading light, she looked exactly like the girl he'd fallen in love with at 20. Because when that lawyer threatened Emma yesterday, I realized something. Your father hurt you. My father hurt you. I hurt you. And Emma's never hurt anyone in her life, but she's the one suffering because of all of us. That's not... It is. She deserves better. You both do. Scarlett turned back to the view. I can't fix what my father did. I can't give you back the 8 years you lost. But I can give you this, a safe place, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. What if it's not enough? Then at least I tried. Emma came running back, grabbing both their hands. Can we live here forever? Nathan knelt down. This is temporary, remember? Just until some stuff gets figured out. Emma's face fell. But I like it here. I know, baby, but we have to be realistic about... Why can't we stay? Emma looked at Scarlett. Don't you want us to stay? Scarlett glanced at Nathan, then back at Emma. I would love for you to stay, but that's up to your dad. Daddy, please? I'll be so good. I'll clean my room every day, and I won't complain about vegetables. And Emma, please? Nathan looked at his daughter's face, at the hope there, and wanted to promise her the world. Wanted to say yes, they'd stay here forever in this castle overlooking the park. But forever was a long time, and he'd learned the hard way that promises broke easier than they were made. We'll see, he said finally. Let's just take it one day at a time. Emma hugged him tight. One day at a time. Okay. That night, Nathan lay in his new bed in his new room and listened to the unfamiliar sounds of Scarlett's apartment. No thin walls, no neighbor's TV, no sirens from the street below. Just quiet. Expensive, unsettling quiet. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. His heart sank. But it wasn't Richard's lawyer. It was a text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Michelle Chen, Scarlett's attorney. She asked me to reach out regarding the custody threat. I need to meet with you tomorrow to discuss strategy. Are you available at 10 a.m.? Nathan texted back. I'm unemployed. I'm available whenever. 10 a.m. it is. Scarlett's apartment? That works. Another text came through, this time from Scarlett. Sorry. Should have asked before giving Michelle your number. But we need to get ahead of this. It's fine. Thanks for handling it. Not handling it, we're handling it. Together. Nathan stared at that word. Together. Like they were a team. Like the past 8 years hadn't happened. Like they could just pick up where they left off and pretend the damage wasn't there. But the damage was there. Would always be there. And living under the same roof wasn't going to erase it. His door creaked open. Emma stood there in her pajamas, Mr. Elephant under one arm. Can't sleep, she signed. The quiet is too loud. Nathan almost laughed. Yeah, I know what you mean. Come here. She climbed into bed with him, fitting herself against his side the way she had when she was smaller. Nathan held her and stared at the ceiling and tried to believe that this, all of this, was going to work out somehow.
Hey, baby, he said out loud, knowing she couldn't hear him but needing to say it anyway. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make sure you're safe and happy and that nobody ever scares you again, I promise. Emma was already asleep, her breathing soft and even. Nathan closed his eyes and made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd meet with the lawyer. He'd figure out how to fight Richard Bennett. He'd learn how to live in this apartment with Scarlett without falling apart. Tomorrow, he'd start rebuilding. But tonight, he just held his daughter and tried to remember what it felt like to hope. Michelle Chen arrived at exactly 10 the next morning, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen better days, and a travel mug of coffee that she clutched like a lifeline. She was younger than Nathan expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and the kind of energy that came from running on caffeine and spite. You must be Nathan. She shook his hand firmly. I've been Scarlett's attorney for 2 years, mostly corporate stuff, but I've handled a few family law cases. Where's Scarlett? Taking Emma to the park. Figured this conversation was better without a 6-year-old present. Smart. Michelle settled onto the couch, pulled out a yellow legal pad covered in notes. Let's talk about Richard Bennett and why he's suddenly interested in your parenting abilities. Retaliation for this press conference. Obviously. But we need to understand the specific angle he's working. Gerald Hutchins, the lawyer who showed up at your neighbor's place, filed preliminary paperwork with family court yesterday afternoon. Claims to have received an anonymous tip about potential neglect. Nathan's stomach dropped. Anonymous tip? Convenient, right? The tip alleges that Emma has missed medical appointments, that your living conditions were unsafe, and that you lack stable employment. Michelle looked up from her notes. Any of that true? She's missed one appointment. One. I had to work and the school nurse said we could reschedule. And your living conditions? The apartment was small, but it was clean and safe, and Emma was happy there. Employment? I was fired Monday. Because of Richard. Michelle made notes. Here's the problem. On paper, this looks bad. Single father, recently unemployed, living in poverty, with a disabled child who requires specialized care. A judge could see that and decide Emma needs a more stable environment. She has a stable environment. She has me. I know that. You know that. But we need to prove it to a court. Michelle tapped her pen against the legal pad. The good news is you're not in that apartment anymore. You're here, in a safe, appropriate living situation. That kills his housing complaint. And Scarlett's willing to testify that Richard orchestrated your termination in retaliation? She already stood up to him once. I'm not asking her to do it again. You're not asking. I am. And trust me, her testimony will carry weight. The door opened. Scarlett came in with Emma, both of them windblown and laughing about something. Emma saw Michelle and immediately went shy, hiding behind Scarlett's legs. Michelle! Scarlett's smile faded when she saw the legal pad. How bad is it? Manageable. If Nathan cooperates and we move fast. Michelle gestured to the couch. Sit. We need to talk strategy. Emma tugged on Scarlett's hand. Who is that lady? She's a lawyer. She helps people solve problems. What problems? Boring adult problems. Why don't you go play in your room for a bit? Emma looked between them, clearly sensing the tension, but she nodded and headed down the hall. Nathan watched her go, hating that his daughter had to live in a world where adults created problems that required lawyers to fix. Richard filed for emergency custody, Michelle said without preamble. Claims Nathan is unfit and that Emma is in immediate danger. Scarlett went pale. He can't be serious. He's very serious. The hearing is scheduled for Friday. That gives us 4 days to build a defense. 4 days? Nathan's voice came out strangled. That's not enough time. It's what we have. So here's what we're going to do. Nathan, you're going to document everything. Every interaction with Emma. Every meal. Every activity. We need to show a pattern of responsible parenting. Scarlett, you're going to provide a character witness statement and evidence of this living arrangement. I'll subpoena Emma's school records, medical records, anything that shows she's healthy and well cared for. What about Richard's motivation? Scarlett asked. Can't we argue this is retaliation? We can and will, but family courts care about one thing, the child's best interests. We need to prove that Emma thriving with Nathan, regardless of why Richard's coming after him. Nathan's hands were shaking. He pressed them against his knees, willing them to stop.
What happens if we lose? Michelle's expression softened. Let's not think about that yet. What happens if we lose? He repeated. Temporary custody would likely go to Richard while a full investigation is conducted. That could take months. No. The word came out flat and final. That's not happening. He's not taking my daughter. Then we make sure we win. After Michelle left, Nathan sat on the couch staring at nothing. Scarlett sat beside him, close but not touching, letting the silence stretch. I'm sorry, she said finally. This is my fault. If I hadn't done the press conference, Don't apologize for doing the right thing. The right thing is about to cost you Emma. The right thing already cost me everything 8 years ago. At least this time I'm not fighting alone. Scarlett looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. Nathan, I need to tell you something. About that night. The night you disappeared. Scarlett, please. I need to say this. She took a breath. After you left, after my father told me you'd betrayed us, I tried to find you. For months. I hired investigators, called everyone we knew, checked every hospital and police station. I was terrified something had happened to you. I was in Pennsylvania, working construction. I know that now, but then I thought you were dead, or that you'd left because I wasn't enough, because I'd chosen my father over you one too many times, and you finally gave up. Nathan's throat tightened. It wasn't about you. I know, it was about Emma, about protecting your daughter, but part of me wishes... She stopped, started again. Part of me wishes you'd told me the truth. Let me help. Let me be there for you. Would you have believed me if I'd told you your father was lying? Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. I want to say yes, but honestly, I don't know. I was so desperate to believe he was the man I thought he was. The father who took me to work with him on Saturdays and taught me about buildings and made me believe I could run a company someday. Her voice broke. It took me 8 years to see him clearly. 8 years too late. It's not too late. You're seeing him now. And look where it got us. He's trying to take Emma away. He's destroying both our lives. How is that not too late? Nathan turned to face her. Because we're still here, still fighting, still trying to do the right thing even when it costs us everything. That matters, Scarlett. That means something. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, doing the right thing just makes you a target. Yeah, it does. But the alternative is becoming him. And I'd rather lose everything than become Richard Bennett. Even Emma? The question hit like a punch. Nathan stood up, walked to the window, stared out at Central Park stretched below them. I won't lose Emma. I can't. But if you did, then I'd fight to get her back. Every single day. For the rest of my life, if that's what it took. He turned around. That's what doing the right thing means sometimes. It means you fight even when you're losing. You stand up even when you're scared. You protect the people you love even when the whole world tells you to quit. Scarlett wiped at her eyes. When did you get so wise? When I became a father. Kids have a way of making you figure out what actually matters. Emma appeared in the doorway, Mr. Elephant under her arm. Why is everyone sad? Nathan forced a smile. We're not sad. Just talking about boring stuff. You're lying. Your eye is doing the thing again. Scarlett laughed through her tears. She's got you figured out. Emma walked over, climbed onto the couch between them. Are you crying because of me? No, baby, Nathan signed. We're just worried about some grown-up things. What things? How did you explain to a 6-year-old that her grandfather was trying to take her away? That the world was full of people who use children as weapons? You didn't. You protected her from it as long as you could. Remember the man who came to Mrs. Chen's house? Nathan signed carefully. He works for someone who thinks you should live somewhere else. But I like living here, with you and Scarlett. I know. And we're going to make sure you can stay. Promise? Nathan looked at Scarlett, at the fear in her eyes that probably matched his own. Then he looked back at Emma and signed something he hoped he could make true. Promise. The next 4 days were a blur of preparation. Michelle came back twice more with lists of documents they needed, questions Nathan had to answer, strategies they had to plan. Emma's teacher provided a glowing letter about her progress and Nathan's involvement in her education. The school nurse documented every medical appointment, every vaccination, proving that Emma was healthy and well cared for. Mrs. Chen showed up Wednesday afternoon with a casserole and a determination to testify if needed. "That man threatened a child," she said, her accent thickening with anger. "I'll tell the judge exactly what kind of person does that." Even Jenkins called. "Heard about the custody thing? It's bullshit, Brooks. You're the best father I know. If you need me to testify to that, I will." Nathan thanked him, surprised by how many people were willing to stand up for him. For 8 years, he'd kept his head down, kept to himself, convinced he had to do everything alone. Turned out he'd built something without realizing it, a community of people who saw him as more than just the maintenance guy. Thursday night, the night before the hearing, Nathan couldn't sleep. He got up around 2 in the morning, went to the kitchen for water, and found Scarlett already there, sitting at the counter in pajamas, staring at her laptop. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Apparently not." He poured water, sat down across from her. "What are you doing?"
"Going through old files, looking for anything we can use against my father." She turned the laptop around. Financial records, emails, memos. He's been moving money offshore for years. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, payments to city officials that can't be explained. If the prosecutors see this, they'll put him in prison. Maybe, probably, if we turn it over. Nathan looked at her face, at the conflict there. "You don't want to." "He's still my father. Despite everything, despite how much I hate what he's done," her voice broke. "He's still the man who taught me to read blueprints, who believed I could run a company when everyone else thought I should marry rich and look pretty. How do I destroy that person?" "You're not destroying him. He destroyed himself. You're just making sure everyone else sees it." "Is there a difference?"
Nathan thought about that. About all the times over the past 8 years when he'd wanted revenge on Richard Bennett, when he'd imagined confronting him, exposing him, watching him lose everything the way Nathan had. But now, sitting here with Scarlett, watching her grapple with the choice to betray her father, revenge felt hollow.
"Yeah," he said quietly. "There's a difference. Destroying someone is about making them hurt. Exposing them is about protecting everyone else they might hurt. You're not doing this to punish him. You're doing it to protect Emma, to protect every other person he might threaten or blackmail or manipulate. It doesn't feel different. I know, but it is." Scarlett closed the laptop. "Michelle wants to submit this evidence tomorrow. Show the judge that Richard has a pattern of using his power to hurt people who oppose him, that this custody thing is just another example. And you're not sure you can do it." "I'm terrified I can do it. That's worse." She looked at him. "When you stood up to him 8 years ago, did you know it would cost you everything?" "Yeah, I knew." "And you did it anyway?" "I had to. There were families living in those buildings. Kids Emma's age. How could I live with myself if something happened to them and I'd said nothing?" "So you sacrificed yourself instead." "I protected people who couldn't protect themselves. That's different." Scarlett smiled sadly. "You keep saying that. Like there's a clean line between sacrifice and protection. But sometimes they're the same thing, Nathan. Sometimes protecting someone means destroying yourself in the process. Is that what you're afraid of? That turning over that evidence will destroy you?" "No, I'm afraid it won't. I'm afraid I'll do it and feel relieved. That I'll watch my father get arrested and think, good, he deserves it, instead of feeling torn about it. What kind of daughter does that make me?" Nathan reached across the counter, took her hand. The kind who knows the difference between love and loyalty. You can love your father and still hold him accountable. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Aren't they? Emma loves me. But if I ever did something to hurt her or someone else, I'd want her to hold me accountable too. That's what love should be. Caring enough to tell the truth even when it's hard. Scarlett's fingers tightened around his. "When did you become so good at this?" "At what?" "At knowing exactly what to say. At making impossible choices sound simple. They're not simple. They're just necessary." He squeezed her hand back. "Turn over the evidence, Scarlett. Let the prosecutors do their job. Your father made his choices. Now he gets to live with the consequences." She nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll tell Michelle to submit it." They sat there in the quiet kitchen, hands clasped across the counter,
And Nathan realized this was the first time in 8 years he'd felt like he wasn't carrying everything alone, like someone was standing beside him in the darkness instead of watching from somewhere safe and far away. "Nathan," Scarlett's voice was barely above a whisper. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for believing I could be better than my father, for letting me back into your life even after everything. You're the one who gave us a place to live, who stood up to your father, who's risking everything to help fight for Emma." "That's not the same thing, isn't it?" She looked at him, and something shifted in her expression, something vulnerable and scared and hopeful all at once. "When this is over, when we win tomorrow and Emma's safe and your father can't hurt us anymore, can we talk? About us?" Nathan's heart stuttered. "Scarlett, I know. It's complicated. I know we have 8 years of damage between us. I know you probably don't trust me. I know I don't deserve a second chance." She took a shaky breath. "But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even when I thought you'd betrayed me. Even when I hated you for leaving. Even through all of it, I never stopped." Nathan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at her and feel something crack open in his chest that he thought was sealed shut forever. "I can't promise you anything," he said finally. "I can't promise I'm ready for this, or that I won't mess it up, or that Emma and I won't wake up one day and realize this was all a mistake. I'm not asking for promises." "Then what are you asking for?" "A chance. Just a chance to see if there's anything left worth saving." Nathan looked down at their joined hands, thought about everything they'd lost and everything they might still lose tomorrow. Thought about Emma sleeping down the hall in her room with the view of the park. Thought about all the ways love could break you and all the ways it could rebuild you if you were brave enough to try. "After tomorrow," he said. "After we know Emma's safe. We can talk." Scarlett's smile was tremulous but real. "After tomorrow." Friday morning arrived with clear skies and cold wind. Nathan woke up early, dressed in the one suit he owned, bought secondhand for Lily's funeral 6 years ago and rarely worn since. He stood in front of the mirror trying to knot his tie and failing 3 times before Scarlett appeared in the doorway. "Here, let me." She fixed his tie with quick, efficient movements, her fingers steady even though Nathan could see the fear in her eyes. "You look good," she said when she finished. "Professional, like the architect you used to be." "I look like I'm playing dress-up." "You look like a good father who deserves to keep his daughter." Emma emerged from her room in the dress Mrs. Chen had helped pick out. Navy blue with white flowers, appropriate for court, but still something a kid would actually wear. She'd brushed her own hair and it stuck up in places, but Nathan didn't fix it. Let the judge see that Emma was a real child, not some perfect prop. "Do I have to go?" Emma signed nervously. "To the court?" "No, baby. You get to stay with Mrs. Chen today." "What if the judge says I have to live somewhere else?" Nathan knelt down, took her small hands in his. "That's not going to happen. You promised, remember?" "I remember, and I'm going to keep that promise." Mrs. Chen picked Emma up at 8:30. Nathan hugged his daughter tight, breathing in her kid shampoo smell, trying not to think about what it would feel like if this was the last time. "Be good for Mrs. Chen." "Always am." "No, you're not." Emma grinned. "But you love me anyway." "Unfortunately, yes." After they left, Nathan and Scarlett rode to the courthouse in silence. Michelle met them on the steps, looking fierce and caffeinated. "Ready?" she asked. "No," Nathan said honestly. "Good. Confident people make mistakes. Scared people stay sharp." She adjusted her briefcase. "Richard's team requested a closed hearing. Judge approved it, so it'll just be us, them, and the judge. No media circus." "Small blessings," Scarlett muttered. The courtroom was smaller than Nathan expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic spaces he'd seen on TV. Judge Patricia Morrison sat behind the bench, gray-haired and stern-faced, looking like she'd seen every kind of family drama and wasn't impressed by any of it. Richard Bennett sat at the other table with 2 lawyers who looked like they charged $1,000 an hour. He didn't look at Nathan or Scarlett, just stared straight ahead, his face carved from stone. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Morrison." They stood. The judge settled into her chair, reviewed the paperwork in front of her, then looked up. "This is a hearing regarding emergency custody for Emma Brooks, age 6. Mr. Bennett, Your petition claims the child is in immediate danger due to her father's inability to provide adequate care. Mr. Brooks, you contest these claims, is that correct? Nathan stood. Yes, Your Honor. Let's hear from Mr. Bennett's counsel first. The next hour was excruciating. Richard's lawyers painted Nathan as an unstable, unemployed man living in poverty who'd been fired for misconduct and was now squatting in his ex-girlfriend's apartment. They presented the anonymous tip claiming Emma had missed medical appointments and was falling behind in school. They showed photos of Nathan's old apartment. Somehow they'd gotten inside, highlighting the small space and worn furniture. Nathan sat there listening to his life get shredded and tried to stay calm. Then it was Michelle's turn. Your Honor, everything opposing counsel just presented is either misleading or outright false. Emma Brooks has missed one medical appointment in 6 years, which was immediately rescheduled. She's not falling behind in school, she's excelling. I have letters from her teachers confirming this. Michelle slid documents across to the judge. As for Mr. Brooks' employment, he was terminated in retaliation for being connected to Ms. Bennett's whistleblowing. We have documentation proving this termination was orchestrated by Richard Bennett himself. Richard's lawyer objected. The judge overruled it. Mr. Brooks didn't choose to live in that apartment because he's irresponsible, Michelle continued. He lived there because Richard Bennett blacklisted him from his profession 8 years ago, forcing him into maintenance work at a fraction of his earning potential. And he's not squatting anywhere. He's staying with Ms. Bennett by invitation while he seeks new employment. And what is the nature of Mr. Brooks and Ms. Bennett's relationship? The judge asked. Nathan and Scarlett exchanged glances. Complicated, Nathan said. Judge Morrison almost smiled. I gathered. Be more specific. We were engaged 8 years ago. Her father destroyed my career to cover up a scandal. We recently reconnected. She's helping me rebuild my life. So you're romantically involved? Nathan stopped, looked at Scarlett. She nodded slightly. We're trying to figure that out, Your Honor. But regardless of our relationship, Emma has her own room, proper care, and a stable home environment. A home environment that could disappear if Ms. Bennett decides to end this arrangement. With respect, Your Honor, any living situation could change. But Emma's father won't. I'm the constant in her life. I have been since the day she was born. The judge made notes. Mr. Bennett, you're asking for emergency custody of your granddaughter? Richard's lawyer stood. Mr. Brooks is not married to Miss Bennett. They're not even in a committed relationship. Emma has no legal connection to Ms. Bennett, yet she's living in that woman's home because her father can't provide for her independently. That's not true, Nathan said. I can provide. Without Ms. Bennett's charity? Without her money? Without her apartment? The lawyer leaned forward. You have no job, no home, no prospects. You're living off the generosity of a woman you claim to have a complicated relationship with. What happens when that relationship ends? Where does Emma live then? Nathan felt the walls closing in. Everything the lawyer said was technically true, even if it ignored all the context. Your Honor, Scarlett stood up. May I speak? Ms. Bennett, you're not party to this case. I know, but I'm being discussed, so I'd like to address the characterization of my relationship with Mr. Brooks. She took a breath. 8 years ago, I loved Nathan Brooks. I was going to marry him. Then my father, she gestured toward Richard, who refused to look at her. Then my father lied to me, told me Nathan had betrayed us, destroyed Nathan's career to protect a construction scandal that's now public knowledge. I believed those lies because I was young and stupid and couldn't imagine my father would hurt someone I loved. Mam daki ochi says. Ms. Bennett, the judge warned. I'm almost finished. Nathan isn't living with me out of charity. He's living with me because I'm trying to make up for 8 years of damage my family caused. Because his daughter deserves stability and safety. And because, her voice broke slightly, because I still love him. I probably never stopped. The courtroom went silent. Nathan stared at her. She'd just said it. In court. In front of her father and the judge and everyone. No taking it back now. Richard finally looked at them, and his face was twisted with something Nathan couldn't quite identify. Rage? Pain? Betrayal? Your Honor, Richard's lawyer tried to recover. Ms. Bennett's emotional testimony doesn't change the facts. Mr. Brooks cannot independently provide for his daughter.
Actually, Michelle cut in, that's no longer true. This morning, Mr. Brooks received a job offer. She slid another document across. Harrison and Associates, one of the top architecture firms in the city, has offered him a position as senior architect. Starting salary of $185,000, full benefits, including health insurance for Emma. Nathan's head snapped toward Michelle. What? She gave him a tiny smile. Check your email.
Nathan pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Sure enough, there it was, an email from Thomas Harrison himself, offering Nathan a position and apologizing for believing Richard Bennett's lies 8 years ago. This is convenient timing, Richard's lawyer said skeptically. It's timing based on Mr. Brooks' reputation finally being cleared, Michelle countered. When Miss Bennett went public about her father's corruption, multiple firms reached out to Mr. Brooks. Harrison's was simply the first to make a formal offer. Judge Morrison reviewed the offer letter. This appears legitimate. Mr. Bennett, your case rests on the claim that Mr. Brooks cannot provide adequate care. If he has gainful employment and stable housing, the housing is contingent on his relationship with my daughter, who has stated on record that she's committed to supporting him. She's unstable. She destroyed her own company. I exposed corruption, Scarlett said coldly. There's a difference. You betrayed your family. You threatened a 6-year-old child. Enough. Judge Morrison's voice cracked like a whip. Mr. Bennett, I've reviewed all the evidence. I've heard testimony from Mr. Brooks' neighbors, Emma's teachers, and her medical providers. They all paint the same picture. A devoted father raising a happy, healthy child under difficult circumstances. Circumstances that your actions created. Your Honor, I'm not finished. This emergency custody petition appears to be motivated by personal vendetta rather than genuine concern for the child's welfare. The evidence submitted by your legal team is either misleading or completely negated by Mr. Brooks' current situation. She looked at Nathan. Mr. Brooks, I'm denying the emergency custody petition. Emma will remain in your care. Nathan's legs almost gave out. Scarlett grabbed his arm, steadying him. However, the judge continued, I'm ordering a follow-up review in 3 months. I want to see that your employment situation has stabilized and that Emma continues to thrive. Can you agree to that? Yes, Your Honor, absolutely. Good. Mr. Bennett, if you attempt to interfere with Mr. Brooks' parenting again, I'll hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Richard stood slowly. For the first time since Nathan had known him, he looked old, defeated. Crystal clear, Your Honor. Outside the courthouse, Nathan couldn't stop shaking. Scarlett and Michelle flanked him on the steps, and Michelle was grinning. That went better than expected, she said. The job offer was real. I may have called in some favors, let certain people know you were available, but Harrison made the decision himself. He's been following the Riverside story. He remembered you from back when you worked together. Nathan sat down hard on the steps. I can't believe it's over. It's not over, Scarlett said quietly. My father will try something else. Let him. Nathan looked up at her. Let him try. We'll deal with it. Together. That word again, together, like a promise and a question all at once. Michelle excused herself to make phone calls, leaving Nathan and Scarlett alone on the courthouse steps. You told the judge you loved me, Nathan said. I did. In front of your father. I know. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing you've ever done. Probably both. Scarlett sat beside him. But it was true. And I'm tired of hiding from the truth. Nathan watched people walking past, going about their normal Friday business, completely unaware that his entire world had just shifted on its axis. 8 years ago, he said slowly, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. My career, the woman I loved, my future. All of it gone. Nathan, but I was wrong. Because I gained Emma, and she became my entire world. The reason I got up every morning. The reason I kept fighting. He turned to look at Scarlett. If I let you back in, if we try this, I need you to understand that Emma comes first. Always. No matter what. I know. And I need to know that you're not going to wake up one day and decide this is too hard, that we're too damaged, that 8 years is too much to overcome. Scarlett took his hand. I can't promise we won't struggle. I can't promise it'll be easy or that we won't have days where we remember all the hurt and wonder if we're making a mistake. But I can promise I'll fight for us, the way I should have fought 8 years ago. Nathan looked at their joined hands. I'm scared. Me too. What if we screw it up? Then we'll figure it out, together. She squeezed his fingers. That's what you kept saying, right? We're in this together now. So we mess up together, we fix it together, we build something new together. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. But so is walking away from the only person who's ever made me want to be better. She smiled through tears. I love you, Nathan Brooks. I loved you when we were 22 and stupid. I loved you when I thought I hated you. And I love you now, standing here on these courthouse steps, both of us broken and scared and trying to figure out if we're brave enough to try again. Nathan felt something in his chest, that sealed shut place, crack open completely. 8 years of walls and protection and keeping everyone at a distance, all of it crumbling. I love you too, he said, and the words felt like jumping off a cliff. I never stopped, even when I wanted to, even when it would have been easier. Scarlett kissed him. Right there on the courthouse steps, in front of strangers and lawyers, and probably someone's phone camera. It wasn't the perfect movie kiss. Their noses bumped and she was crying and he was shaking. But it was real. Messy and complicated and absolutely real. When they pulled apart, Scarlett was laughing. We're a disaster. The worst. Emma's going to have opinions about this. She already told me you have kind eyes. I think we're good. Kind eyes? That's what sold her? She's 6. She has simple criteria. They sat there until Michelle came back, until the courthouse steps got too cold, until Nathan remembered they had to go pick up Emma and tell her she was safe. That the judge said she could stay with her dad. That the bad man wasn't going to take her away. 3 months later, Nathan stood in Harrison and Associates' conference room, presenting his design for a community center in the Bronx. The same community center he and Scarlett had dreamed about building back when they were young architects who thought they could change the world. Thomas Harrison listened with his usual skeptical expression, asking pointed questions about load-bearing walls and budget constraints. The rest of the team took notes, offered suggestions, pushed back on details. Nathan answered every question, defended every choice, and felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years, pride in his work. When the presentation ended, Harrison leaned back in his chair. It's good, Brooks, really good. I'll forward this to the client. We should have an answer by next week. Thank you, sir. Stop calling me sir, makes me feel old. Harrison stood, shook Nathan's hand. I'm glad you're back in architecture. You've got talent most people would kill for. Shame to waste it on fixing toilets. After everyone filed out, Nathan gathered his materials and checked his phone. Text from Emma. Mrs. Chen says I did good on my math test. He texted back. That's great, baby. We'll celebrate tonight. Ice cream? Yes. Can Scarlett come? If she's not working. Another text came through, this time from Scarlett. Finished with depositions early. Coming home. Want me to pick up Emma? Home. She'd started calling the apartment home about a month ago, and it still made Nathan's chest feel tight every time. That'd be great. I'll meet you there. The apartment felt different now. Emma's artwork covered the walls. Nathan's books lined the shelves. Scarlett's coffee maker had a permanent spot on the counter. It wasn't his place or her place anymore. It was theirs. Messy and lived in and real. Emma burst through the door at 6, signing excitedly about her test in recess and the new kid in class who was teaching everyone bad words in sign language. He taught you bad words? Nathan signed with mock horror. I already knew them. Mrs. Chen's nephew taught me last year. Of course he did. Dinner was chaotic. Emma's stories overlapping with Scarlett's work updates and Nathan's news about the community center. They ate at the kitchen counter because the dining room table was covered in Emma's art project, and nobody bothered to move it. After Emma went to bed, Nathan and Scarlett cleaned up together, moving around the kitchen in the comfortable silence of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. I got a call from the prosecutor's office today, Scarlett said, drying the last dish. They're moving forward with charges against my father, financial fraud, bribery, corruption. He's looking at 15 years minimum. How do you feel about that? Relieved, guilty, sad, angry? She set the dish down. All of it at once. Nathan pulled her into a hug. She fit against him perfectly, the way she always had. You did the right thing. Doesn't make it easier. No, but it makes it worth it. They stood like that for a while, swaying slightly, not quite dancing, but close enough. Nathan? Scarlett's voice was muffled against his chest. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For giving me a second chance, for letting me be part of this. She pulled back to look at him. For teaching me what it means to fight for something that matters. You already knew how to fight. I knew how to win. That's different. You taught me how to fight for the right reasons, even when winning costs everything. Nathan kissed her forehead. We're both still learning. Then let's keep learning together. Emma appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, Mr. Elephant under one arm. You guys are being mushy again. Go back to bed, Nathan signed. Can I sleep with you? I had a bad dream. What about? The man from Mrs. Chen's house, the one who asked questions. Nathan's chest tightened. 3 months later, and Emma still had nightmares about Richard's lawyer. Probably would for a while. Come here, baby. Emma climbed between them on the couch. Scarlett grabbed the blanket from the back and draped it over all three of them. Tell me a story, Emma signed. A good one. Nathan thought about all the stories he could tell. Fairy tales and adventures and happy endings that didn't exist in real life. But Emma deserved the truth, even if the truth was messy. Once upon a time, he signed, there was a man who loved his daughter more than anything in the world, and a woman who loved the same man but got lost for a while. And they both made mistakes, big ones, but they kept trying to do better. That's not a very good story, Emma signed. Nothing happens. Sure it does. The man got his career back. The woman learned to be brave, and they all lived together in an apartment with a view of the park. And then what? And then they kept living, day by day, fighting when they had to, loving each other even when it was hard, building something new from all the broken pieces. Emma considered this seriously. Is that a happy ending? Nathan looked at Scarlett, at the way she was watching him with tears in her eyes. Looked at Emma, safe and warm between them. Looked at the life they'd built from nothing but stubbornness and hope. Yeah, baby. I think it is. Even though it's not perfect? Especially because it's not perfect. Perfect things are boring. Real things, messy, complicated, broken things that we fix together, those are what matter. Emma yawned. I like real things. Me too. She fell asleep between them, her breathing soft and steady. Nathan and Scarlett sat there until late, not wanting to move, not wanting to break the spell of this moment. Because this was it. This was the happy ending that nobody promised you. Not perfect, not easy, not the fairy tale version where everything magically worked out, but real. Messy,